You know,
here. What's up?
I was thinking about something.
What are we thinking about, bro?
I was thinking about what's going on in the earth, right?
What's happening in our minds?
Yeah, and I wondered, why does it matter?
We're about to find out.
Holy shit. Ready?
Just kidding.
Welcome to Earth, Mind, and Matter. We said, fuck it, let's talk about albums. We said, let's talk about some movies and some fucking comics. This week in the universe, across the internet.
So what's up, Javi?
What's going on, Frankie? So,
Yo.
I'm going to ask you this one time and one time only.
What's up?
We doing crack?
Yeah, man. I already have it on my left pocket.
Nice.
But before we do the crack, we should, how can I say, we should do three prayers.
Three what?
Three prayers.
Okay.
3 prayers.
Like which ones?
Just prayers. They say it's best to do prayer before you do crack. You never heard that before?
I haven't heard of that one. No.
Oh, man,
I've always just done my crack straight up.
You know, see, praying enhances the crack. As per experts, man. I just want to make sure anybody doing crack right. I hope if anybody's doing crack at the moment that they stop, do some prayers, and proceed with the crack, consumption. That's all I'm saying, man. It's not me. It's just what they said.
It's what he said.
Did you just assume they's gender, bro? I said they said, not me or they.
I said that's what he said.
Oh, and as Javi said that, he was pointing to the ground. The big man downstairs. And so today is, what's the day? The 25th of April.
25th of April.
Jesus
April
Christ.
is just flying by, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Fucking, and this is a little different. We're shooting into the week. We're shooting the day of the upload, right?
Yeah.
Fucking weird times, man. But we didn't want to miss a day. We didn't upload this morning. So sorry for that, people.
Don't worry. It'll be up.
It'll be up. Or the big man downstairs. But yeah, welcome, man. It's a little early.
It's a little early. What time is it right now?
Fucking 12:27. So it's not that early. It's kind of afternoon, but
I mean, it's the earliest we filmed.
I think
for
so.
Sure.
Hell yeah, man.
Which is I think there might be a little weird energy because of that. I'm gonna just call it out now. This might be a weird energy episode because
breakfast episode.
A brunch episode. I got my fucking egg. What do they call it? The egg. Shit.
How about you find out what you know you're gonna say before you say it?
I don't want to just fuck it up and sound like an asshole.
What are you trying to refer to? Like breakfast?
Yeah, like that brunch thing with like the eggs.
Eggs Benedict?
No, it's like the French one. It's like eggs voyer or something like that.
Eggs voyage. What are you talking about? It's French breakfast. Is it French breakfast?
I think.
Listen, let me Google French eggs. Hold on.
French eggs. French eggies.
French
Eggos.
Fuck, I can't type with one finger. French eggs brunch. Let's see what pops up. I'm sure we'll get your answer. All right, it says Le Moulin. That's a restaurant in New York City.
God damn it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been to a brunch ever, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Nah, I'm lying. I have no idea. But I really would like to for the bottomless mimosas,
I haven't had a bottomless mimosas at brunch,
okay.
But I've definitely gone to brunch before.
Yeah?
Teen scones are fucking lit.
What is that?
Oh my God. What do you mean, what are teen scones?
Like teenager scones?
What the fuck? Tea and scones.
Like, tea and scones? I think they said teen scones. That's what I heard. It's that morning energy, bro. I feel it too. Usually it's like late. Usually we've already done shit in the day and then like our brains have already. But this is fresh.
This is fresh out the womb.
Yeah, man.
But before we just keep going,
okay,
Frankie, what are we doing?
Oh man, shit. We're talking about what's on the earth.
And this is what's going on in our minds.
And this is why it matters. This is Earth, Mind, and Matter.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. I'm Frankie.
I'm Javi.
And this is episode 16?
16.
Jesus Christ, man. Shit, tired of this shit, bro. It's been a lot of episodes going, man. And fuck, man. I just feel like just before we shot, I said, I feel like we haven't shot in forever, right?
Yeah.
And we're here now ready to talk and shit. And I got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about. But yeah, man. I mean, before anything, fucking, what's going on with you? Just living life?
Just living life, my guy.
Outside of cracking brunch?
Yeah, outside having crack at brunch while eating tea and scones.
How can I say? After 3 prayers.
After the 3 prayers.
3 prayers. Nice.
You know, I just been living.
Good, man. Good.
Been sleeping a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of movies, bro. I've been going to the theater a lot, right?
Uh-huh.
And I know you're going to see a movie tonight, the Everything Everywhere at Once movie.
Yeah.
So,
I also saw The Northman
yesterday. Man, I want to watch that movie. I might go to watch it. Well, am I here? Okay, I might go watch it today, man, because that movie looks like it's going to be really good.
I thought it was good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. I thought Everything Everywhere at Once was... I don't want to say nothing because I don't want to ruin it, but I've seen X also. X was a really fucking good movie.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
I should, man. And being back like at the movie theaters like all the time, man, I miss that shit, bro. Oh my God, I miss that shit so much.
You gotta sign up for A-list, my guy.
I know, bro, but I've been going to this theater near my house called Nighthawk Cinema. It's a small theater. Like the theater is like a fraction of what A.M.C is, or like 1/64th of an IMAX theater because the fucking shit is huge. But it's a little more intimate. And just like you get a little food, they bring it to you and stuff. I was fasting.
You make out with the waiters or whatever that
yeah,
bring
just
you
blah,
food.
But you keep one eye open to watch the movie. So I did this last week, right? I fasted for 3 days, bro.
Yeah.
In the spirit of Ramadan and the Holy Ghost. Yeah. Just kidding. and the way I did it and the reason I did it, right? I said, fuck it, let me just try to do it because I never thought I could accomplish something like that. Not that it's like the most difficult thing in the world, but it is difficult, right? Mm-hmm. And a friend of ours, Joe, he had done it for 3 days as well. So I said, fuck it, let me do this. And man, it was pretty interesting, man. It was a lot of mental clarity, a lot of stomach, hungry and shit like that. But it was a good experience, man. And I felt much happier during.
I don't know, man. I don't know if not eating would ever make me happy.
I don't know. It didn't make me not happy, and I just felt like I had more time, more focus on things. I wasn't just thinking about this and that, I
mean, especially like when you have the munchies and stuff.
God, bro. That's why I didn't smoke. I wanted to eat it. I wanted to eat it edible during. First of all, it's not fasting. The second of all, I didn't want to fucking have the munchies and be fasting. But I drank plenty of water. And that's about it. I had some coffee too and had 1 kombucha. So don't tell me.
Damn, you cheated. Cheated.
Shut up.
Cheater.
I fasted.
There's going to be a big ass sign when you get home that just says, "Welcome home, cheater."
Didn't fast. Fuck it. In my mind, I fasted. I had 70 calories in 3 days. Leave me alone.
Well,
yeah, man.
That's nice to hear, man.
Thank you. Thank you, bro. Thank you for listening. And anyway, so as per always, we have 3 topics to talk about and then the A.M.C section. Today we're doing the movie section and we'll talk about that later. But today I want to talk about 3 things, of course. Right? I wanted to speak on the unionizations that's been happening, right? With all these other companies, specifically Starbucks right now. Because we've talked about it before, but there's a lot more info coming out now that it's continually progressing with a bunch of the stores, and the CEO Howard Schultz, who wasn't for a bit, he came back, and he had a lot to say. It's very interesting, his output to the world, like vocally and stuff like that. But how a lot of people are, I won't get into it now, but it's interesting, very interesting, and I wanted to expand more on the unionizations. I also wanted to talk about the one and only Florida Governor DeSantis. Okay. And I wanted to speak about his, what's it called, parental rights and education bill, and how it's going to affect the taxpayers, because at this point, what I wanted to talk about more is how him and Disney are kind of getting in this little rumble in Florida, over, politics and opinions, and also just like ground, like owning land, Yeah. And then I wanted to talk about a specific lady called Melissa Lucio. So she's the only Hispanic woman on death row right now, and it's set to be executed on the 27th, 2 days from now.
Oh, wow.
So it's a bunch of interesting stuff, and it gets real heavy. It's going to be a heavy episode. Not like emotionally, just by like me reading a lot. So expect to hear a lot of, because boy, it's fucking, I got notes for days here. And yeah, man. So have you heard about any of these stories in the past days?
I've heard a little bit about like the DeSantis and like Disney stuff going on. Not too much though.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to get into that. But for the other 2 topics, no.
All right, nice.
Haven't really heard about them.
Shit, man. Well, here goes, bro. Here goes the show. This is the AM show.
As they say, that's the way the news goes.
Oh yeah, here we go. All right, so I didn't know this. Well, first of all, the CEO of Starbucks, the CEO of Howard Schultz is Starbucks. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. The CEO of Starbucks is Howard Schultz. He was the CEO for since forever. Stopped being the CEO and then became the CEO again. Just a little fun fact. At one point in his life, he ran for president.
Oh, really?
It was a very short running for president. I just had no idea about that. So I was like, oh shit. And what I wanted to talk about more specifically is that, and this happened in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
And the person that's it's revolving around is a barista or worker for Starbucks and a union organizer in Starbucks, employed since 2020, if I'm not mistaken. We'll call them Hall, like hallway, without the way. And that
they don't got the way.
they don't have the way, not yet apparently. And they've been, trying to unionize their store in particular for a bit now. They were able to attend a meeting with the National Labor Relations Board, right? And Howard Schultz was there at the meeting. They're talking about, the company, how they want to unionize and all that stuff. And while they were at the meeting, discussing all these things, every time Hall brought up the unfair labor practice complaints that the company has faced, all this stuff that they're facing throughout, working there in the pandemic and everything, that Schultz became increasingly irritated every time it was brought up. So he didn't really want to speak about this. He wasn't going to discuss the National Labor Relations Board, and every time he ignored the conversation and even said, quote, if you hate Starbucks so much, why don't you go somewhere else? To Hall and everybody else. Which I know Starbucks has this thing called third place, which is a welcoming to everybody that walks through their doors. Yeah. So that's kind of like contradictive in itself, and almost wonders how you choose your words when you state it in certain areas, of your company. Now, the reason a lot of workers want to unionize is because like Starbucks, McDonald's, Amazon, Etsy, and Apple is because people work through the pandemic and they feel that they're not being recognized as a key factor to the company's success, even though they are incredibly key factors. Having to work through, risking their health, their family's health, and all that stuff. While other stores are closed, especially local businesses, they were able to be open with little to no business just to keep the company running.
There's also like video game companies that are trying to unionize as well. That
really?
Are struggling with that as well. On top of these other companies that are trying to that are struggling to unionize as well. So it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, everybody I think is finally realizing that they're able to do something, or at least change their workplace environment for the better, right? And mind you, just to be like really forward, this is not a conversation to, let's say, push or not push unionization for the stores. I think regardless of anything, I think me and you share this neutral opinion, especially through this podcast, where just have your own opinion. But if you hear something that, forces you, makes you want to do something, anything, just do it, or the other way, do that. Because I think this is what I'm going to get into more so on that. These discussions, especially for people that may or may not work for Starbucks and this and that, it becomes pretty tricky, especially with how the company's past has been towards people who want to unionize, right? So, employees feel underappreciated, and as of now, 223 Starbucks locations in 31 states have filed for votes with the National Labor Relations Board. That's a lot of fucking stores, but there's about 9,000 stores overall.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, how many stores are there overall? Yeah,
so it's a number that's increasing, but definitely not zero anymore. And how long has this going on? For a while, and for sure, 28 stores have voted to unionize in Starbucks. And before it started off from 9 stores to 28, so that number is just increasing, and that's as of April 1st. And now we even see in New York City, a store in Astoria is hoping to unionize, and they have, right? They've been able to unionize, and even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has visited that store, sat down with the union leaders, and discussed, cameras around and everything. And we can see for sure, she's a very young liberal politician who's more on the side of the people that are working. We talked about her during the delivery workers' rights, that stuff. Yeah. So she's a very hands-on politician, but that type of support and that type of presence speaks a lot and shows a lot about what this movement may mean to people working for Starbucks, or again, Apple, Amazon, Etsy, the video game company. any stuff, you know? So again, there are 9,000 company stores, and let's see, right here, Starbucks is a front-facing company considered, well, you know, the workers in Starbucks is considered essential, right? The Workers United organizing chief, Richard Minter, says that the pandemic exacerbated the employer-employee relationship. The partners were left in the crosshairs without the resources necessary to handle what was happening, without the right precautions and protocols that allowed them to feel safe. Meaning, I mean, it could mean many things, but I know from my experience working at Dunkin' Donuts, right? We, you know, I've had this experience where, you know, we're working through a pandemic, and I think anybody through that time is saying, why am I even here right now? Like, is it that important to serve this cup of coffee when we can die from being coughed on, or our family members can die from being coughed on, and this and that, you know? So it's one of those things where you consider, is my life worth, you know, this much an hour on this and that? And maybe if I had a little more extended coverage or this and that, we can either not be here or be covered a little more, you know?
Or if we were just robots.
If we were just robots, that'd be better. If we were just robots, we could just be playing video games, and this podcast could be done by the robot. You know, a little bit of AI action. And Howard Schultz has constantly called unions as a menace to the company's economics and future. So he's like, fuck them unions. I don't want them shits, you know? And this is also very interesting too, because now we get to the point of how much are the leaders within this company willing to allow unionization or hear out people who want to unionize. Because he's saying, Schultz, that the number of employees who have voted for unionization is a bare minority, and that those that are anti-union workers have not cast a vote, you know? He said people who are anti-union workers have been bullied against voting by pro-union workers. So he's saying, you know, he's saying that if you want to unionize, your voice is much louder than those who don't, and those who don't, their voices are being less supported, you know? And this is coming from Howard Schultz, who again is very anti-union. So could this be an opinion or could this be fact? And
I think it's one of those times where you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Whatever that means. And now, like you said, companies throughout the country are being, quote unquote, assaulted in many ways by the threat of unionization. Oh no, he said this. He said companies throughout the country are being assaulted in many ways with the threat of unionizations, and that unions get their revenue from dues, which could come out of your pay each week or month. Howard Schultz. This is something I've also heard from my leadership working at a Dunkin' Donuts. You know, the first thing that they've told me when I heard about things unionizing, stores unionizing, is, you know, you're going to have to pay for that. Your pay is going to be decreased because union's going to happen. I don't know if you guys want that. And that, again, sounds like, to me, a strategic, you know, maneuver, a way to dissuade somebody into doing something, when I think a lot of people don't really know what it means to join a union, in my opinion, you know?
I mean, it definitely just kind of works on a case-by-case basis
For sure.
for unions. So, like, it's kind of speaking against the sort of neutrality of speaking on these topics.
Yeah.
Like, it's just whatever works for your store.
Yeah.
Because a union can fix a lot of issues
For sure.
in terms of, like, lack of employment or lack of training or lack of hours and
stuff
things like that. So,
Definitely.
like, unions definitely solve those issues for sure. So it works on a case by case basis. So when people in managerial positions like Howard Schultz and others and things like that are kind of like are very anti-union, it's so hard to take them serious because you're really just kind of like come on, man, I need help. Like some people in managerial positions might consider jobs like these to be startup jobs.
Yeah.
And
or like Eric Adams, low skilled workers. You know, our mayor, by the way.
And I just feel like that could be a little unfair because there are people that are completely reliant on this job to make a living for themselves.
Yeah.
And to consider that as just like a low skilled job or just something that's a startup job, that it's supposed to be something that you're supposed to move on from. Like, come on, that's just not realistic. I don't think.
Yeah. And there are people who might not even have like, just to be broad, not their papers, or can't get other jobs or this and that, you know. And I'm pretty sure you and I and anybody that's listening know people that have worked these quote unquote startup jobs, these low skilled jobs, but they've known a worker who's been there pretty much half their life. Yeah. I've known people to work in jobs like this that have had children throughout the time being there. I've known people that retired at 60, 70. And at the Dunkin' Donuts job, on the website, they were celebrating a guy's 70th birthday, you know, for being at that company. So I don't know about the startup job stuff, especially when they push the idea of supporting the workers with benefits such as health, 401k, etc. These things that, you know, really crucial to one's survival in the world. And, you know, they depend on these things, you know?
Yeah, it just kind of seems like such a weird give and take, where it's like, we're going to give you like these sorts of benefits or whatever, that people do rely on, but at the same time, we're just going to make you reliant on us.
Yeah.
A company.
It's kind of like a cycle, you know?
And it's like, does anyone ever really want to be reliant on a company?
Exactly. And so the interesting thing about all this, and at this point it may seem, you know, it's Schultz's word against the people's word, right? Or the workers' word. But Starbucks has hired a law firm of Litterer Mendelson. And Litterer Mendelson often boasts of its skill at guiding companies in developing and initiating strategies that lawfully avoid unions.
Okay.
So that's incredibly interesting, right? Why would Starbucks go to this, you know, law firm? Of course, Schultz himself said he doesn't want these companies to unionize. It'll be disastrous for them. Mm-hmm. But now it's incredibly evident by hiring this law firm who, again, boasts about this skill set of avoiding unions within the eyes of the law. That kind of trickles into what the CEO is saying to these possibly, you know, manager positions.
What was OJ's lawyer's name?
Yeah, Johnny Cochran, something like that.
They got Cochran working for him.
If the union don't fit, thou must quit. That'd be awesome. I'm not gonna lie to you. Right? So what this law firm does is it includes a couple of things, which advises management on precise, quote, this is a unquote, precise and compliant messaging to employees that may include informational signs and posters, home letters, meeting materials, testimonial videos, social media postings, handouts, and campaign websites. Meaning, you do any of these things as a worker, and you may be held accountable for, you know, spreading this message of unionization.
Okay.
And that to me is very interesting, because when does that kind of cave into your freedom of speech or expression or anything like that, or just being a human being with a curious mind as to what a union may do for you or not do for you? Again, I do kind of agree with this idea that those who are anti-union their voices may be a bit suppressed, because those people will exist too. It may not benefit everybody, you know?
I mean, I think that just speaks to the case-by-case basis of like what unions are. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important, and I think it's good that when unions do happen, that each employee has to vote individually. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to go about it.
And it's the only way to go about it. You can't form a union without these votes happening. But is it that everybody has to vote yes, or the majority has to vote yes?
I think it's the majority has to vote yes.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting when we start getting cases of you know, different types of stores or different companies, you know, voting no, because the reason to that would be interesting. But so far, it's seemingly common that the store is saying yes and yes and yes and yes. Mm-hmm. You know, so alongside you know, holding people accountable for all these ways of spreading union, you know, information, they also paint the unions as quote outsiders and imply that their only goal is to add members. And what the firm says is, say that the unions will disrupt the smooth working of the company or even drive it out of business. Say they'll make it impossible for workers to deal directly with management, and talk about how much money workers will lose to the unions. So that's, again, these are all strategic mannerisms to avoid unions. Yeah. From the law firm hired by Starbucks, which again is just very interesting. You know, so Now there's a lot more problems happening in Starbucks. From I read this from the LA Times, by the way, and it says among a lot of the problems outside the pandemic, and working through it, is that now more than ever, workers are dealing with more difficult customers than ever before, and there's stores that are chronically short-staffed, shift assignments that are so unpredictable they can't plan anything else in their lives, reduced hours, and inadequate pay. And me personally, like I just know, workers who have had to leave their store early because of an occurrence that happened within it, whether it be violent or threatening to their lives or health or safety. Mm-hmm. Workers calling cops that never show up, and just also just cutting hours and all that stuff, and a lack of they're definitely a common occurrence. It's not, so this is relatable, and this is in the LA Times, happening in Long Beach, California. So that's and then also cleaning disgusting ass bathrooms. That's just that may be part of the whole union thing. Those bathrooms are always disgusting, but realistically, a place like Starbucks that allows the whole public to come in and use the bathroom
should afford like a team to just like clean the store, honestly, because I remember for my first job, for that place, they had a whole cleaning team, so we weren't ever really in charge of cleaning the place at the end of the day and things like that. And a union could do something like that, so that it wouldn't have to be the employee's responsibility to have to clean the place every night like that. That's true. Or as intense. And
you open up more jobs for people to work. And realistically, when you sign up for a job such as any, let's say, fast food service, right, or a restaurant industry, when does the line cross from when you sign up for creating the food, making the food, serving the food, creating this experience, then to cleaning bathrooms, deep cleaning something, scrubbing the walls, when, a company should separate those things, or are able to at the very least, because then there's this real urgent focus on, create this experience with a patron of the company, right? But also at the same time, we need you to keep this clean. And it's like, well, you want us to do both of these things, and yet we're only here so little time because of the short staffness, and our pay is still not that great. So it's kind of like balancing 20 things at once on a unicycle, while getting thrown only 50 cents every hour.
50 cents.
Da! Put sounds of change to the throat. Da! Da! All right. And Hall, the union organizer,
that was your best turkey impression.
Thank you, bro. That was the next story. Turkeys and their impressions people can make of them. Hall, the union organizer and barista, he acknowledged, or she acknowledged, I definitely don't know if they're whatever they identify as, that the Starbucks benefits are good, that they include healthcare coverage for part-timers, but also said that workers' hours have been getting cut almost to the point where they might not reach the 20-hour weekly minimum that makes them eligible for those benefits. So again, it comes down to Starbucks will say, no, we take care of our people. We take care of our workers. But we're almost going to give them hours that doesn't include them in the care we give to the workers that are here time required.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. Now, this is not the first time that Starbucks has been in this arena, like it says, of fraught labor relations. Meaning, this is not the first time people have wanted to unionize, right?
It was kind of popular in the 90s, right?
Yeah, like in the very, very early 90s. In 1987, when Schultz acquired the company, he basically got a bunch of local chain of coffee spots in Seattle, right? At the time, the Starbucks employees were represented by the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. Former workers say that Schultz promised to honor the United Food and Commercial Workers Union contract, but almost immediately tried to negotiate it. He said that he was a caring boss and claimed that he was the first executive to grant part-time workers health coverage, but that was not true. The provision to provide health coverage to the part-time workers was already part of the UFCW's contract negotiated before his arrival. So a lot of no, I did that. And no, you didn't. And it already matched similar benefits the union had secured for grocery workers and other members across the Puget Sound region, which is where the stores were located. Now, Starbucks spokesperson, I really can't talk today. What the fuck?
It's early.
It's too early, bro. What the fuck? Who does a podcast at 12:54 in the morning? It's not even the morning, it's afternoon. Anyways, Starbucks spokesperson Reggie Barges told me, Franky.
Okay.
That show.
You did it again. You said your full name.
Oh fuck! God damn, bro. I trust too much. Reggie motherfucking Barges told Hall. Schultz said that he was the first to bring those benefits to a nationwide workforce, right? Okay. But the union contracts across the countries already provided that for part-time, like in terms of part-time benefits, those contracts already provided that. I wrote that down so weird. Okay. Yeah. So again, it's kind of like Schultz taking credit for providing for the workers when it was already within those contracts. Mm-hmm. And in 2010, the National Labor Relations Board charged Starbucks with the raft of violations of federal labor law in connection with this attack on organizing effort in Manhattan by the industrial workers of the world. Among the charges, it said that the company discriminated against pro-union employees at the stores, prohibited workers from discussing the union or their working conditions, and fired 2 pro-union workers. Huh. Yeah.
That's a no-no.
The first pro-union worker, I think they rightfully got fired, but the second one, the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, deemed that second firing of the worker illegal and ordered the company to reinstate the worker back with pay.
Did they go back?
I'm not sure. I didn't look that up. But all in all, Starbucks said, hey, we don't want you to be doing that here. And the National Labor Relations Board was like, chill the fuck out. They have all the right to, push for that union. And, outside of reading this, because, again, it's a wordy thing, and it's probably more relatable to people that are in this business. But I think it's important to realize that, again, history repeats itself.
Oh, does it now, Franky? Oh, does it now?
And one thing I heard on The Sopranos is that those who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it, And in many ways, we're seeing a new sprout of, ideology, of new coming mindsets bringing change to a billionaire dollar company who has enough for itself. That may be a larger statement than, it really is in terms of who gets paid for what and everything. But during that pandemic, who was at work and who was it? I'm sure the CEOs and all these, higher ups of this company were at home, working from home, while people had to go to work, wear masks that, if I'm not mistaken, they weren't working at all. They were like 1-ply masks,
and they weren't provided by like stores and stuff. Yeah,
and when they did, the masks that were provided were not good. They actually had to be 2 layers of covering to your face?
I think it was 3-ply actually.
3-ply, right? And the initial ones were very, very thin, so that didn't protect anybody from anything. And it's just an incredible thing. I just think it's important to realize that these companies and what they say it's just very hypocritical, and they really don't change anything until they're held accountable. And that's why these unions are important, because the unions help, with the workers' representation, mm-hmm. with how they're protected and all that stuff. And I think it's overdue. We saw that happening with quote unquote McDonald's workers, oh, they're just flipping burgers. Why do they want to raise? Because you know how much they bullshit they deal with at 2 a.m. in the morning when I walk in through those doors and I'm like, yo, let me get 20 nuggets of barbecue sauce. Let me get a soda.
When you over order your food because you're drunk.
Yeah, man. And they got 30 people. Somebody's peeing on the bathroom corner and somebody's crying on the left side and, all that stupid shit.
They got 3 delivery drivers being like, here for order 512.
Like, all right, bro, we got 70,000 orders. All while getting paid $15 an hour. What the fuck, man? And so this, real snowball effect now is really going down. So maybe these workers that are quote unquote essential actually are. And there's so much of them that we should start treating them better.
Whoa. I'm essential?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. You and a doctor, there's no difference. They save lives, you save hunger. You're God.
I remember being told one time that maybe I gotta chill out in terms of complaining about the customers, because maybe some of these people are actually dealing with caffeine addictions that aren't being dealt with.
Man, fuck them customers.
And I'm kind of like, I guess, but that doesn't give them the right to be shitty. Like,
I mean, that's what companies say. Hey, I remember a long time ago, I remember all my interactions with customers, I would be sweating my ass off. I would be working hard, serving drinks to the point where there was lines and lines and lines. Like workers are sweating, no time to just breathe. And I had a higher up come into the store, right? This is at a Starbucks. This is when I worked at a Starbucks. And a higher up worked in. And I was helping about 10 people at the same time. And he comes up to me and he's like, hey, Frankie. His name starts with a J. That's all I'll say. He's like, hey, Frankie.
Javi.
He said, Frankie, hey, I noticed that you were working and you were working, but you didn't smile. I didn't see you smiling out there. So I would like you to go out there again and just start smiling, like provide that energy. I want you to make that, that time special for that one person, And I told him, I was like, hey man, I helped out these customers with this. I got this person a bag full of food. I got the tray full of drinks. And I was like, I don't know, is what I'm doing correct? He's like, no, but you just need to smile more, And I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, what kind of inhumane shit is this? Like, no, you don't want me to smile. You want me to, you're slave, you want me to be a robot. You want me to be inhumane. And then I stopped hearing that smile stuff. I wonder why. I wonder why they stopped telling people to stop smiling, start smiling, I mean. Because you can't do that shit.
I was told the same thing at my first job, that I got a smile, and my boss, literally, kind of he was this massive dude, and he kind of put his hand on my shoulder, but since he was such a big dude when he did it, I felt like I just got slammed to the side. And he just puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, come on, give me a smile.
Oh no.
And I'm just like, oh God. And I just had to awkwardly smile in front of him.
That's so gross.
And I'm just yo, man, this sucks.
It's the equivalent of going up to somebody, hitting them in the ribs with a bat, and it's like, smile, man, come on. While they're already working.
It's like, it also reminds me of kind of how with women that whole sexist thing of telling women to smile.
Yeah,
it's like,
oh yeah, definitely. That's actually very true. I never thought about that. I guess I was sexually assaulted. So were you? Here,
I felt sexually assaulted the other day at work. There I was just mopping the floors and stuff, and this guy comes in and he's like, "Oh, hey, buddy, whatever," because he was in earlier, so he saw me. Him seeing me again, he's like, "Oh, you're still here," and this and that. He grabs his stuff and then he starts walking out, and he grabs me by the hips.
No way, what the fuck?
And kind of moves around me,
and then all you hear is.
He just grabs me by the hips from behind and just kind of walks past me.
No!
And he's just kind of like, "All right, I'll see you later, buddy." And I was just kind of like, "What the fuck, man?"
He me too'd you, bro. He me too'd you. He grabbed you by the hips, caressed your cheek, and was like, "Excuse me, schmuckums." And then he walked past you and went, blew a cushion. But third place. Third place. To finish this off, because I got two things left to say. Recently, of course, the recent unionizations have generated new charges from the National Labor Relations Board, right? And this is incredibly interesting. Last July, an NLRB administrative law judge found that the company had illegally spied on Philadelphia workers engaged in the unionization effort and fired both of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In an attempt to quell the organizing drive. And last month, what was April?
Yeah.
So in March.
Yeah.
Last month, the agency charged Starbucks with illegal anti-union activity in Phoenix. Wow.
Shout out to Phoenix.
Shout out to Phoenix, Arizona. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. And basically the company also spied on union supporters among its workers and suspended one union organizer and forced another to quit, allegedly because of their union activities. Now, first of all, excuse me for not being able to talk today. I'm drinking a kombucha.
It's a kombucha fucking you up.
It's fucking me up, bro.
It's
early in the day. Fucking, we didn't pray before this. But I hope this is just. I mean, this is a weird article. Like, it really went from we've been talking about unions and all these companies and this and that, but now we see to how far these companies are going. And I even want to go back to how I said. How Howard Schultz said, if you don't like Starbucks so much, why don't you go somewhere else? That doesn't sound very much like what they represent themselves as. You know, this caring company for all their workers. Like, I thought you were supposed to hear your people out. You know, hear out what you want to, what the people who literally wake up at 4 a.m. to go serve your coffee, you should probably hear out what they have to say. And if it's something that, you know, you find endangering your company's future, well, maybe they weren't satisfied in the first place, and this has been long overdue. You know, and I think it's very, you know, when it comes down to, you know, firing people, suspending people, spying on people, you know, pushing this verbal narrative to persuade people from unionizing, even though they might not even know how much it could benefit them. It's all kind of disgusting. Yeah. And this is just happening with Starbucks. We haven't even got to Apple and the great Jeff Bezos' Amazon and Etsy and all these other stores.
I mean, even kind of like how it was mentioned last week with Elon Musk and Tesla, of how like certain employees have kind of been shut down for kind of talking out loud and stuff.
Really?
So
I remember we talked about that for sure, right? But I don't remember that.
Yeah,
bring that up again, because
I mean there weren't a lot of details on it when I looked into it last week, but
in Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. I do remember that. I thought you meant in Twitter.
Oh no. But I mean, even with that, yo man, did you see the fucking news today? They're close to
finalizing the deal and everything.
Finalizing the deal. What the fuck? What the fuck? I didn't expect this to happen.
What article did I have that I had to open on my shit? It was saying that there was a movement earlier that was, you know, when Trump became president and everybody wants to move to Canada?
Nah, I don't remember that at all.
Never mind then. Well, when Trump became president, everybody was like, I'm going to move to Canada. I'm going to move to Canada. And now they're saying that when Elon Musk, if he does become, you know, the owner of Twitter, CEO of Twitter, they're saying that people leaving Twitter is the equivalent of people leaving America to when Trump, you know, became, which is ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. It's not like some rich motherfucker didn't already own Twitter, you know? Like, that's stupid, bro. It's, oh my God. For lack of a better word, we're stupid.
Twitter fan base is wild.
Super, bro. And find
that
us
that was the beehole.
Oh, that was the beehole. And find us on Twitter when Elon Musk buys it. That'll be so interesting, man. But his motive to buy it supposedly comes from protecting freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And today I heard something really good. Freedom of speech is not liking somebody and still hearing what they have to say. And I think that's important. I think it's important to realize that you're not going to like what everybody has to say. And of course, there's like hate speech and this and that, like, you know, it shouldn't be tolerated and should be more controlled, which, you know, how we talked about Seth Rogen trying to stop, you know, anti-Semitic comments and stuff. And Twitter just said it's more complicated than that. You know, we can't do that. And then there was a terrible tragedy in France where a bunch of Jews got killed. You know, I think a better job has to be done because Twitter is this real base for people to just spew hatred. All social media platforms are. And I don't know, man.
I mean, it's kind of like Elon Musk said. Twitter has become like the de facto like town square. Yeah. So, you know, it's really difficult to kind of control that.
Yeah, man. So how do you see the future of big companies moving forward with unionizations? I just think, and it's a huge topic. So it's not.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I kind of talk about these sort of corporate topics and stuff, I always think of Blade Runner.
Okay,
like,
I've never seen. I gotta watch that shit, man.
Like Blade Runner is just all about this idea of like fucking companies ruling like the world, pretty much.
You mean today?
And it's just
Earth Mind and Matter, sponsored by Yahoo.
I don't know if you ever see any clips of anything from Blade Runner, but the time that Blade Runner was made, I think during the 80s, because it was made during that time, there's actually a building for Atari.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Atari's a badass name though. I fucks with that.
But yeah, I always think about Blade Runner just because like this idea of like corporates just kind of running everything, and like there's just no sense of privacy, and just you have no control over your own body at this point, and it's like it just really rings this idea that companies will do anything they can to like exploit you, especially in a world of capitalism.
Yeah,
it's almost like in the contract. Like when you work in a capitalistic society, you are signing yourself off to be exploited one way or another.
I mean, once you sign any contract, this is going to sound ridiculous, and I don't mean this obviously to the fullest extent, but I've always felt that particularly actors and, you know, athletes, when they sign a contract to work to do this, to perform. When in reality, we all do this. We're giving our like souls away. We're kind of slaves to the company we're signing up for. You know, slaves is a strong word, of course, but in reality, it's either you do it or you're fired. You know, or you're fined heavily.
It's either you do it or you can't survive.
Exactly, and that kind of sounds like, you know, slavery, but just again, very modern slavery. And
so it's you know, I would say I'm pretty anti-capitalistic myself. I just don't agree with a lot of like capitalistic ideas and like themes and things like that, because it just seems so greedy to me.
It's disgusting.
And it just seems like that at the end of the day, they're just trying to make the most money the easiest way possible.
Yeah. And I like what you said about exploiting the worker, you know, to whatever extent they can. I just feel that, to add on, it's exploit your workers until they catch you and you have to change it to look a little better, but still exploit them to give them some flowers. And then, you know, like, oh, you know, now you have to just add a little something that makes up nothing for the years of, you know, not doing this. And then, you know, just so the public can be a little more calm. I do expect in the future for, you know, a company like Starbucks to succumb to the unions and just, you know, allow it, but still sneakily find some bullshit to prevent.
Oh, I'm sure in like 5 years from now, like Starbucks is like are gonna be unionized left and right, and Starbucks is gonna be like, yo, unions are the shit,
man. We are unions.
You want to unionize? I got you, my guy. Like that's.
I like how they become this tough Italian guy. Hey, come over, union over here. Terrible accent. Fuck Apple.
Fuck the Bezos.
Hey, don't disrespect Bezos like that. The GOAT, Bezos and Kyle Rittenhouse.
Fuck that bald motherfucker. You remember in the SpongeBob movie when Neptune takes off his bag and everyone's like, bald, bald, bald. That's what I do every time I look at Jeff Bezos. Yeah, man. Too shiny.
He just throws $1 million at you. If you're that rich and still that bald, I guess bald is the new wave. There must be something about it. That Joe Rogan, Jeff Bezos, Dana White, The Rock. You know, I don't know. Man.
Okay, you're bringing up some good people here. You're bringing up some good people, or maybe they just sold their souls.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Maybe they just sold their souls, man. Maybe that's all what the man downstairs want. Hair.
Maybe the soul's in the hair.
Yeah.
But that means cancer patients don't have souls.
Okay, let's roll it back.
Anyways.
That was a beehole. You know, whatever. You know, we're funny.
Just jokes. Now we're going to talk about Florida. This is an interesting topic, and I didn't want to bring this topic up just because it's too antsy for everybody. I don't care what anybody has to say. Really, really, people are annoying. And I just think that when it comes to this particular bill, everybody's opinion. And I think it's a discussion that should be had, not shouted like everybody does nowadays. Just
if you're telling me that if I'm not louder than you while we're having this conversation,
it's just because I'm right.
No, but if I'm louder,
but you're racist. But you're racist because you're louder.
That doesn't mean anything, because that just means that you clearly are a supporter of anti-Semitic hate.
Oh, you clearly identify as somebody who identifies me as anti-Semitic hate.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Okay,
fiend. That's our representation of y'all motherfuckers that don't know how to act, and we're not perfect. You know, but on this podcast, we're perfect. And that's what I think happens a lot, especially with this, you know, bill. So we're going to talk about the governor, right? He's the governor, DeSantis, or whatever, suit and tie bitch ass. Governor DeSantis and Disney. And what's been happening lately with
the big mouse.
Hey there. Oh, that's right. That was really good.
I love how you surprised yourself.
I didn't think it was going to come out that good. I used to do my shit so bad. Can you do your Kevin one again? The chili?
Okay. Yeah. I made my favorite chili.
It's so good, bro. That's so good. Supplements are going up today, by the way, with the chili, because it's so good. All right. So recently in Florida, the Parental Rights and Education Bill has been passed. For those who don't know what that is and constantly misrepresent it with the wrong name, it's what it's a bill that limits teaching about gender identity and sexual orientation in grades like kindergarten and third grade. So how old would people be in those grades, you say?
Kindergarten to third grade, that's probably like what? Like
7,
5,
5, 6,
6, 7, something like that.
So some young ass children.
Yeah.
So the young ass children, who knows what they're learning at that time, but they're learning a shitload and absorbing a lot. This bill basically, again, it limits the teaching of gender identity and sexual orientation. It notifies parents about health services schools offer, and parents can decline health screenings or questionnaires, right? Here I have this photo. I'll show you, but we'll put it up on the YouTube video. But it's a disgusting photo of DeSantis with the bill surrounded by children. I thought that was gross, just because it's just a weird thing, man.
It's
like,
such a politician move.
Yeah, man. And to me, it reminds me of that
For
kid.
the kids!
For the kids! It reminds me of that kid I saw in Boston with the Biden hat, that loser. that fucking clod, yo. Motherfucker was not even bigger than my knee. Wearing a Biden hat. And I'm not hating on him.
I'm telling you, he's going to be the next big politician.
That'd be so funny.
He's going to be running for Boston governor and then the president, and you're going to look like an asshole.
His name's going to be Biden. That's not even a Biden hat, it was just his name. But I'm not hating on the little kid. I'm hating on his parents, bro. His bitch ass parents. How you put a Biden, it's the same as you put a Make America Great Again hat on your little kid. I think so. It's the same shit. Like, stop pushing your political agendas on the kids. So, we see Governor DeSantis here cheesing like an asshole, surrounded by kids. And the reason I call him asshole is because kids aren't...
he's literally mooning the camera.
Yeah, and he's licking kids. The reason I think it's gross is because this, in the title, says parental rights, right? So, realistically, he should be with a bunch of parents. And even if he is, those kids don't have a choice in a way. This is kind of what it's saying, right? We let the parents make the choices for the kids, for what they learn and what they consume, especially in the topic of orientation and identity with their gender and sex. So I think it's gross that these kids have no say and no knowledge really about what's happening right now. I don't believe that any of these kids are so involved in politics that they're pushing for this for kids a year younger than them to be affected. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like automatically that it's like to kind of sort of hide children from the world of sexuality at that young of an age is just kind of unrealistic because who cares if, like what happens in school, because outside of school there's a whole fucking world to them.
And
like,
for sure. And that's what a lot of parents in Florida are saying as well. They're saying that it's, well, my question is what's the obligation and where is it split in terms of teaching the subject matter, right? Is it from the sex educators in the school or the parents? And for me, what I'm trying to say is that he's representing the parents, so I think he should be surrounded by parents, right? My opinion on the matter is kind of just back and forth. I don't think anybody's right in this situation. I think it should be a big discussion, and I just don't know how we're going to be able to do that across the nation when they can't even do it in Florida. I've heard, I don't know if it was you talking to somebody, but, they were like, well, the words mom and dad get brought up in school a lot, right? And not like mom and dad and dad. And I think there's a quick fix to that. Maybe like if this bill is supported, which it is, and passed, maybe if you say things like parent and parent, I don't know to what extent it would be not beneficial to children if you just go by this bill in a matter that isn't supporting either way, because we do have exaggerated teachers on both sides that push this whatever is happening in terms of sexual orientation, LGBTQ support, and this and that, where there's a lot of motives being pushed on kids as well, and that's happening I think also as also people who are anti gay or this and that, they're also pushing these motives on children. I think we should get rid of both of those and keep it neutral altogether, Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting that you kind of say the thing of like at school they don't really say mom and dad or whatever. I think that would definitely be like a good step to just kind of start like, because the way that I've always seen things in terms of speaking about gender when I refer to people is I always just kind of use the word they or them, just because that's such a neutral term. It can go either way for he or she. And some people just identify with they or them. And so when it comes to that, I just don't understand why we can't just say like parents and just leave it at that.
Me too.
And it's like just leave it at that sort of vague term and just say your parents.
Yeah, I think that's That's a perfect idea. Like, I know I just said it too before you said that, but it's just an easier way of going by than being like, no, because a nuclear family isn't the only type of family in the United States. You know, it's not just mom, dad, daughter, son, or whatever people think it is. And I also do understand that, you know, some people don't want their genders assumed, you know, which I completely get. But there are people who are, you know, just boy, girl, you know, and that's what they know and feel. Not passionately, just all they know and feel. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who identify as, you know, a woman, man from a woman, or a woman to a man. And when they're not addressed as, they're either offended and this and that. So you kind of draw this line. You kind of don't know what to say anymore. You know, it's like if I call you a they, but you want to be called a she, but they want to be called a her, and you're, you know, it's like, well, what the fuck? You know, like, this is a lot of bullshit. We're not going to be learning about fractions and, you know, phonics and shit like that. You know, it just, I think there's a lack of focusing on the actual education of children, you know, where I think this is less important than the matter of having better teachers, you know, better funding for schools, like all this stuff. I feel like that should be much more emphasized with the layering of this in a more sophisticated manner. You know, I think academics should be pushed the most, because the smarter you are, the more you're able to think about your actions and understand yourself better. And if we keep the neutrality of, you know, keeping all that stuff out, or maybe just to an extent in or represented fairly, then we kind of do things a little more right, you know?
I mean, I've always said, and kind of like my big belief in terms of education is that they don't teach enough critical thinking.
Okay.
Just because I think that's something very important. Because even what you're saying, that like when you're more educated, it allows you to sort of like review yourself better and things like that, and whatever. That's what critical thinking is. Critical thinking is just the ability to really look outside yourself and really just kind of really look at something in the bigger picture, kind
outward
of
in.
Yeah. And look at things in a bigger picture and just really break things down that way. And I feel like that's not taught enough in school. I feel like that's something that's taught when you're in college, and
too late by then. Not too late, but to an extent.
I would say it is a little too late, because not everyone goes to college.
True.
And so stays in college, and so it really becomes something that some people just completely miss out on, and that's just not fair.
Yeah. And now more than ever, they're emphasizing like creativity and all that stuff. Things that they used to lack on before, like music and art, like how funding was cut for those things because it wasn't too important. Now, you know, not to be vague, but science has proven that that's an incredibly important thing to stimulate children's brains and all that stuff. Even adults, you know, the lack of teaching that really affects people in the worst ways, you know, and adds on to what I think critical thinking, you're saying it is. You know, it gives you perspective and also just, you know, satisfies more in the brain. Humans are much more than just solving problems and this and that. There's a lot more to a human being. So that's kind of the spiel about the whole, you know, I guess we'll say our opinions on the matter, because I like to keep it short just because, again, people are very, very triggered by this. And I understand, too. It's not like it's a perfect bill, and I'm not in the support of it or like hater of it. I just think there should be a much more extended conversation on it. Really, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that it's just there are sort of bigger things that we should be stressing about. I don't think this is something that like should have been an issue to begin with. It's just kind of like when it first came up, I was just kind of like, really? Because like I guess in me saying that I wish none of this like happened or whatever is me sort of having my opinion of that I don't really agree with the bill or this and that and whatever. But it's just I mean, it's just kind of like you said, there are just bigger things to worry about. Yeah. Like we're really stressing out about our kids, like figuring out if they might be gay or not, or
third grade, kindergarten, first, second, you know, to like, whatever extent in this and that. It's
like you should be worrying more about like who's a teacher and like what kind of education your kid's getting and like what they're actually learning in school. But besides sexuality, like are they learning what's actually important to develop their brains at a good and a respective way?
I agree. And unfortunately for both sides of the really aggressive, opinionated, it's just a shouting battle while the kids just watch and look and like, hey, I'm here. I'm still the subject matter, you know? So it's a very interesting thing.
And at the end of the day, it's for the kids,
for the children. So Disney is they were very silent when the whole thing happened. When the whole thing happened, Disney kind of didn't say anything while it was going through the House and the legislation and all that stuff. And DeSantis even said that while this was going through the House and going through the procedure getting passed, Disney was quiet on the whole issue. This is what DeSantis said. And right now there are 4,000 teacher vacancies in Florida, with that number expected to increase because I'm assuming now that the teachers that aren't for this are going to want to leave Florida and go elsewhere. When the opposition, Disney actually hired a lot of people from California to come to Florida because they understand that Florida is a good place to make money as well. Kind of like Texas. Okay. There's a lot of money to be made in these states that were once looked at as really red states that only conservatives go. And if you go down there, it's a bunch of only racists and this and that. When in reality, it's you make what you got to go first. Go first before you speak on some place you've never been, because that's kind of crazy. You would deem a place so bad, and then you get there, you're like, oh no, there's communities that think different things, just like in New York City or anywhere else you would live. You know. Except Georgia. Georgia. No, I'm kidding. The workers in Disney were upset for their response to the bill. They threatened to walk out. And they did. They organized walkouts. And after that, the CEO, Bob Chapek, he at first was silent, but then stopped donations to the legislation. So he heard the Disney workers' voice and said, all right, I'm going to stop donating to basically this whole motive, this person, the people that control this bill, right? And they also put out a statement, and that's it. Like, I'm gonna read the statement just because I think it's important to read. This shit won't open. Okay. All right. This is the statement from the Walt Disney Company on signing of Florida legislation. Quote, Florida's HB 1557, also known as the Don't Say Gay Bill, which is actually which is actually the parental rights bill, should never have been passed and should never have been signed into law. Our goal as a company is for this law to be repealed by the legislature or struck down in the courts, and we remain committed to supporting the national and state organizations working to achieve that. We are dedicated to standing up for the rights and safety of LGBTQ members of the Disney family, as well as the LGBTQ community in Florida and across the country. So that's interesting.
So that was all corporate.
All corporate bullshit. Yeah, it's really, really weird. And earlier, like you said, like you referred to people as they and them. I didn't know this. Disney's diversity and inclusion manager, Vivian Ware, recently spoke of changes in the future of Disney. She said, quote, so we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Ware said, we provided trainings for all of our cast members in a relationship to that. So now they know it's hello, everyone, or hello, friends. Right. And Ware also said that Disney is in the process of changing all the recorded messages at its park. The original phrase, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, changed to dreamers of all ages for announcement at the fireworks show at the Magic Kingdom in Florida last year. That to me is just interesting too, because I don't really hate on it. I don't care, but it's one of those things where like there are boys and girls, and I guess I've never met a 1-year-old that can speak, you know what I mean? Or 2-year-olds that really, don't refer to me as this, it's
I mean, mostly, definitely, but it's also important for people that are like
for sure
those developing ages,
like adults and stuff like that, and younger adults, teens, but,
like teens, and
that's what I mean, though. That's why I don't care for it, because I don't think it affects badly. It's just kind of like, okay, like that makes sense.
I think that's just kind of a smart move. It's just
definitely
kind of like keep it neutral.
Definitely, and then it goes to the point is like how much does a company like Disney get involved into politics? When it's about cartoons, and you get what I'm trying to say.
I mean, when you're a company, it's always politics.
It's true, but when your company revolves around feeding children information, there's people who are opposed and not opposed. When you can really just stay out of that, and when
I don't think you can. I mean, even old school Disney, like you think about like old school Disney and how racist certain things were. And
I mean, I think about the Nazis and Daffy Duck, but I also think that the whole world disagree with that, and like slavery.
No, I know, but that's kind of what I mean. It's like when you're a company, you always have to abide to politics, because it's like someone's always going to come knocking on your door about something.
That's true. And I got some comments from YouTube from the video I was watching. I got 2 of them. One of them is from Black Knight, whatever. It said, quote, I'm sorry I didn't know Disney as a company had to take position on such things. I didn't know a private company needed to comment on every little thing that runs through our government and public matters. Lastly, I didn't know Disney was our 4th branch of government. So that's what they wrote, which I thought was, the second one is also the quote, how babies are made conversation historically happens around puberty, 6th grade or so, and it's parents' job. But in our post-Victorian age in the 40s, 70s, schools thought they should help parents have that conversation. Grades 1 to 3 don't even think about what's in their underwear. So bringing it up too young is setting the stage for confusion by the time they hit puberty. Pink Floyd was right. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. So that's an interesting take on it. And again, like I do agree with the whole, like, it's not a bad thing they're saying hello, dreamers, and this and that. I just think it's just, interesting to me. It's a very interesting thing. Now, Tucker Carlson, or as I wrote down here, Tucker Dickhead Carlson,
Okay.
he spoke to a current Disney employee.
Who's Tucker Carlson?
You don't know who Tucker Carlson is?
No.
Oh man, I can't wait to show you a bunch of his videos. He's a hilarious Fox host who kind of. I was talking to Anthony, our friend, that's the journalist.
Oh.
I was talking to him how he's a very exaggerative reporter. Well, he'll take, like, he addressed this bill and he'll start off the show saying, in today's news, our governor of Florida doesn't want us to discuss our kids' genitals. And if you don't discuss our kids' genitals, you're a sexual, you're wrongdoing sexuality. It's like, so do you want us to talk about kids' genitals? He'll just throw things like that, say it very like, whoa, and he's incredibly well-spoken, he's really well-spoken, very funny without trying to be talented in that sense, but he's a monster to real motives. He's somebody to really represent Kyle Rittenhouse as this hero, like he's an American hero who did the great thing of keeping the Second Amendment alive. Just a lot of those things.
Okay.
He's been on TV forever. I'm surprised you never watched his videos. I'm pretty sure you know who he is.
I don't know.
We're gonna put some up.
I just don't really watch like Fox News or anything like that. So
oh man, you gotta check him out. He's hilarious. And so there's a guy who went on the show, and he's a current Disney employee who is pro parental rights bill. So he thinks that the bill that's passed is like a good thing.
Okay.
And at the end of the interview, he said, "I don't want to lose my country,"
Okay.
which is a little crazy too. But he also, thinking about the union talk we had earlier, he said that the people who support the bill that work for Disney are the silent majority. So he said that a lot of people think that just because you work for Disney that we're hardcore liberals and we all listen to this and that, but that apparently a lot of the people are in support of the bill that was passed in Florida. So that was interesting. I mean, he's just one person, and he also wanted to run for governor in the future. So who knows if his motives were actually there or not. But that's just interesting. Now, what I really wanted to talk about more over this is that the land that Disney owns in Florida is really kind of special because technically it literally is a special district. Okay. So through a special status, it operates as its own government, Disney in Orlando. So when you think about the 4 branch of government, like that's what they're referring to, There was a good point made in CNN. One of the persons said that, I don't know if you remember, we talked about the border thing in Texas and how basically Governor Abbott in Texas cost his state $477 million of economic activity, and that it's similar to DeSantis coming at Disney, which is a huge income for Florida.
Yeah.
So they're kind of combating what's benefiting them the most, and that's a very interesting just comparison. And now I want to talk about how all this stuff, getting rid of this title, a special district for Disney, is going to affect taxpayers in Florida. Yeah,
I was seeing something about that as well.
Yeah.
The whole tax break stuff.
Oh man, that whole thing is interesting because it goes so back and forth. So on Friday, I think last week, the Governor DeSantis stripped Disney of its special self-governing tax district known as the Reedy Creek Improvement District. And once it's in effect in 2023, local taxpayers will be left with the weight of the special district's Disney outstanding debt and cost of upkeep, which is $163 million a year.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of money. Yep. Now, there's a guy named Scott Randolph. He's the Orange County tax collector, and he said that residents will have to take on its tens of millions in bond payments and operational expenses currently paid by Disney, but we'll be left without the ability to collect revenue because the taxing authority will no longer exist, right? So this will possibly increase property taxes by 25%.
Oh,
a lot of money.
Oof.
Now, the Florida State Representative, Randy Fine, he said that local governments will be able to create municipal service taxing units that would also pick up the revenue and would be going to pay for the debt. But again, Scott Randolph, the Orange County tax collector, said that according to Florida statute, that local governments cannot impose MSTUs, municipal service taxing units, on Reedy Creek because it's an independent tax district. You know, so what basically the first guy saying you're gonna get taxed, and the second guy saying, well, they won't get taxed because there's something in government that doesn't allow that. But the first guy saying that's not true because this is already instilled in government.
Yeah,
and he says that when the incorporated municipality dissolves, Disney would have no obligation to pay the $163 million a year. So because they don't have the district and all that stuff, they don't have to pay that off, leaving that debt to be paid by the people surrounded. Because people do live right next to Disney.
Yeah.
And DeSantis later said, in short, really short, that this would not lead to tax increase for Floridians, which who knows is true or not. Because on the way here, I didn't get a chance to read it because it was literally on the way here. But more and more is coming out about DeSantis' motives towards Disney and doing all this. But one big thing also is that when you think of, big corporate, and the history of who's against it in terms of liberals and Republicans, in the past, it's really been liberals who've been attacking and against big corporate and capitalism and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And now we're looking at a point where Republicans are kind of going against big companies like Disney and all that. So it's interesting that, that's not really the main point of all this. The real point is how Floridians will get taxed like crazy because of a bill that's involving, teaching and stuff. This is just a trail back,
It has a massive after effect or a massive shockwave of shit that now people in Florida are going to have to deal with, which just kind of sucks.
And to what extent, why does Disney have this much power in Florida? Like, why do they have this special district? Like, why I know they're a huge income, so of course it makes a lot of sense. But I like what one person said in the Fox article. All this news is from Fox, and mostly Fox and some CNN. But it's like when capitalism or government actually favors one company over another. Mm-hmm. What other company has these advantages? And again, of course, Disney will have them because of the money they bring in, but it's still incredible the power they have, and this kind of little glory they're held to.
Yeah, man. Disney. I keep thinking about it. Blade Runner, man. You gotta, like, I'm telling you, you gotta watch it. Like, you'll watch it and you'll get what I'm saying of just like, corporations just kind of run shit. There's this great video. I wonder if I could find it so we could put up for the supplementary. But it's kind of like those like whiteboard drawing things that people do. Yeah. And it was something about how much corporations have a hand in government nowadays, and how corporations have more of a say than anything nowadays than the government itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
It's really gross to kind of think about. It's like, oh man, like, when you look at bills like this and when you question, like, how can a company get so political? I mean, I used to work at a Ben & Jerry's. Yeah. Ben & Jerry's is super political. Yeah. I remember when they released an ice cream flavor called Pecan Resist against Trump's refugee stuff at the time and whatever. I had someone call the store and when we just opened at like 10, 11 a.m., whatever. And this guy's just like, yeah, I'm just calling because, I'm a fan of Ben & Jerry's and everything, but I just don't agree with what you guys are doing with this flavor. Yeah. I don't think it's good. I'm not in agreement with it. And honestly, if you're asking me, you've lost a customer. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
And I was just kind of like, okay.
I like that as you're wearing a Ben & Jerry's shirt.
Yeah. Represent.
Yeah. Well, I also feel that when Starbucks was handing out shirts that had Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, it's just, I get, the goodness you're trying to do with all these motives, but you're also kind of coercing your workers to be that motive as well. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you're putting this label on your workers. So if you are a Ben & Jerry's worker, you're automatically associated with this, ideology when it may not be yours, as of the guy in Tucker Carlson who is pro the bill, which is the least popular, I guess, to the world, but to him, he says he's the silent majority. This is why I say it's dangerous, or maybe it's not correct for them to be so vocal and even involved in that, because then you start making your workers a part of you, And, and I don't know, at the end of the day, your responsibility is to put out, content, entertainment content, And when is the line drawn to what you can put out? as a Disney company, to me, it sounds the same as a teacher instilling their motives on their students. To what extent are you following the guidelines of teaching, and when are you teaching what you prefer to be taught to kids? Because you could teach communism in the school if you get away with it and create a bunch of little communists.
Or you could also be a really good teacher and be one of those teachers that a student remembers for sure the rest of their time and whatever.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I think I know a lot of people in public school who don't have that or have only one of those in a public school time of 12 years, which is terrible.
And then that just kind of goes back to the conversation that of just maybe there are bigger things to worry about in education.
Definitely. But ultimately, the education thing for sure. I think that's where we definitely both agree that kids, they need to be emphasized. A lot more needs to be emphasized on the quality of learning and what can enhance learning, not just, again, academics, critical thinking, all that stuff. But also, it seems like what DeSantis is doing is either a power move or something, because
it's totally a power move. DeSantis is just trying to show off that he can still run shit because he's still the man, the government, and Big Mouse can't do nothing about it.
But sometimes that may be good. I mean, maybe just to bring down this power that Disney has. How much power does Disney have? You get me?
Man,
they're their own government. And maybe a company like that shouldn't have that much power, just like Amazon or Tesla.
Oh, they shouldn't now.
I mean, I don't know, man.
They shouldn't.
I don't know. But Jeff Bezos, you're doing great. You're doing perfect fine. If you want to come on the podcast, I'll probably go out here. We have a conversation.
You gonna cancel your Disney Plus subscription now?
Nah, man, hell no. I like Disney Plus, bro. The Beatles documentary, fantastic. Yeah, but that's also, people are saying that Netflix is going down in stock, Twitter is going down in stock, Disney's going down in stock. But realistically, they've been going down since the pandemic and all that, I mean, Wall Street is fucking everybody over when it comes to money and stuff. And it's not them. It's, U.S. and their, production of all that stuff. But it's interesting, man. All for Mickey Mouse, bro. That's pretty much all that stuff. It would suck to be in Florida right now paying that much guap. I would be fucking tight, man.
I mean, also at the end of the day, I am curious to think of how expensive are those houses right next to Disney anyway? It's I would imagine that they're probably kind of pricey. So it's how much damage is this doing to the surrounding people that live there? In terms of just their finances, because if they're living right next to Disney, maybe they already make a good amount of money.
That's true.
I'm just throwing that out there.
That's true.
I don't know, but
I think it just goes down to I don't know. That's a good point you make, because you're right. They're living lavishly. There shouldn't be a big deal to them, but it's also that because of the actions of one company and then the governor, now you have to suffer the consequence of it. It sounds like when Bernie Sanders wants to tax the rich, which I think they should be taxed way more than the people who are not as rich. It should be at least a even distribution of taxes, but in the sense that if you're making a lot more, get taxed more, bro. But that's a whole different conversation. I don't even know how to have that conversation just because it gets complicated, man. It gets dumb complicated, because why do we have the system of donating and get tax breaks? You seem like a good person, but you're selfish, which is the whole point. All right, so now the next story is crazy.
Okay,
crazy. It was my day yesterday. No, I'm kidding. It's the only Latino woman on death row right now.
Okay,
or Hispanic woman. And the story
Latina X
in a language that's masculine and feminine. Just saying. Again, the language is masculine and feminine, not language neutral. Anyway, the story came out on 420. And the name of the person is Melissa Lucio. She was 52 and she got sentenced, but now she's 53. Well, not really. She's been in jail for a long time.
Oh, I was gonna say that her birthday just passed in the last few days.
But it was 14 years ago she got arrested, so I'm bugging.
Oh, okay.
But now she's 53. And this is a very, very complex story. So listen up. She was found guilty in the court for the murder of her 2-year-old daughter in 2007.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so she's scheduled to be executed April 27th. Again, today's April 25th, so 2 days from now. But her lawyers are seeking a computation. Do you know what a computation is?
Nah.
Me neither. So when I found out, It's basically lessening the severity of her sentence or her current sentence, which is the death penalty. Mind you, this is in Texas.
Okay.
Good old Texas. And if she were to get, more time to, discuss the case or the computation, she would have 120 more days to review the case entirely to prove her innocence. A new case that would include evidence that the trial that sentenced her did not hear.
Okay.
So that's very, very important. So, prosecutors, they say that Melissa Lucio was an abusive mother. Actually, hold on. Let me get this other thing out. Okay.
Get it out, Frankie.
They said that she was an abusive mother whose actions led to the injuries that led to her 2-year-old Mariah Old's death. Lucio said that the injuries stemmed from an accidental fall down the steps, which was 2 stories high up. Right?
Oh, shit.
Yeah. On the same night of her daughter's death, Lucio's attorneys argue that her admission of guilt was coerced through an aggressive and late night interrogation, right? Medical experts say that Lucio was particularly susceptible to coercion due to her being a lifelong survivor of sexual abuse and domestic violence.
Okay.
She has 14 children, and in prison, 2 of her kids were born. They were twins. A lot of kids.
Damn.
And Lucio's son, John, who's 32, pleads for a chance to prevent the death penalty, stating that her death is not what any of her children want after already losing their 2-year-old sibling and being without their mother for 14 years. So that's crazy. To not have your mom for that long, to lose your 2-year-old, all that stuff. So she had a lot of difficulties raising her children, Melissa Lucio.
Oh.
Often there wasn't enough food, not enough supervision. The house was often dirty. They struggled altogether with homelessness. Her herself struggled with drug addiction. Sometimes the electricity and water were shut off due to non-payment. And the family sometimes relied on community organizations for food. In 2004, the 7 youngest children were placed in foster care and split up among different homes due to neglect. And her attorney said that that happened, but none of it was occurred to abuse. So it was due to neglect, but not abuse. So now, in the 1,000 pages of records throughout this whole family's timeline, none indicate that the children ever report being abused by Melissa Lucio. Okay? And in her past, Lucio had been sexually assaulted, abused, and raped by her mother's partners and more throughout her childhood. So in order to get her children back, when she got them taken away in 2004, she got a job, stayed off drugs, and she got her kids back in 2006. So she clearly cared about getting her kids back. Yeah. It's not like, of course, any mother's intuition or but she did it, Now, the 2-year-old Mariah fell down a flight of stairs. And particularly what happened is that, everybody was getting ready for school and this and that, and the 2-year-old got out of sight, and she opened the screen door, and she fell down the stairs, right? And eventually her injuries led to her death, not that day, but 2 days or 3 days later.
Okay.
Right? Now, this is really important and gets a little confusing. Her daughter Mariah developed serious symptoms when she fell, and they were shown more in the days coming, but they moved from that house that she fell at to a new house.
Okay.
So in the new house, those were the symptoms. That's when the symptoms were showing much more, right? And at one point, Mariah stopped breathing 2 days later, right? When Mariah stopped breathing, Lucio called the paramedics, and they came to their new house, and it had smaller steps in comparison to the old house. So it didn't have the 2 flight of stair steps. It had like a really short amount of steps. The paramedic asked what happened, and Mariah said that Lucio said that Mariah fell on the steps of the house, and the paramedic looked at the house and the stairs and was like, "There's no way the daughter fell these small amount of stairs and got this much injury." Right? She had broken her arm, had like a bite mark on her neck. She looked terrible, The paramedic misunderstood that Mariah had fallen a couple of days back at the house with much larger steps. So Lucio got interrogated that night about her daughter. That night, hours after Mariah's death, Lucio, who was pregnant with her twins at the moment, was interrogated by investigators, and they shouted at Melissa. They berated her as a neglectful mother. They repeatedly showed her photos of her dead child, and implied that if she wasn't going to be at fault, then one of her children would have to be at fault.
Damn.
On the same night that her daughter died. Over the course of their interrogation, Lucio denied hurting Mariah more than 100 times. So she was like, nah, bro, like, that's not what I did, you know? And Lucio told the investigator that she would spank Mariah during the interrogations. And she was also known to say, quote, I don't know what you want me to say. She said, I'm responsible for it after being interrogated so much, you know? Because they kept asking for details. Hours into the interrogation, an investigator brought a doll to have Lucio demonstrate how hard she would spank the child. After she did, the investigator said, well, do it real hard, like you would do it. So kind of imposing this aggressiveness on Lucio after she said that she would just spank her. He would kind of, you know. So Lucio responded by saying that she had demonstrated exactly how she would have spanked her 2-year-old Mariah. And the investigator himself performed what he thought was a hard spank and had Lucio demonstrate again. So after she already said what she had done, he would basically go like, you know, like that, right? Like you would do it like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then make her show him again. So that's a little weird in itself also. Kind of, it was a sheriff, a Texas sheriff.
Okay.
Right?
It's kind of gaslighting almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not fair. You know, there's so much pressure on one person, which understandably, it's a 2-year-old's death. So I understand the emotions around and stuff like that, but it doesn't sound like it's being done in a fair manner. But given her history and stuff, you know, knowing our justice system, people who have a past, you know, history of crime, they're not treated as fairly. You know, even people who don't have any history of crime, especially when you're a minority, you know. So now, because of that, she was charged with capital murder. And her attorneys say her purported admission of guilt was used to convict her in a jury trial. The medical examiner who conducted the toddler's autopsy testified for the state that Mariah's injury must have occurred within 24 hours of her death. So what he saw says that it had happened 2 days ago. It said it happened within 24 hours. And the ER doctor who tried to resuscitate Mariah similarly said that it was the absolute worst case of child abuse he's seen in his career, and that the injuries could not have been caused by a fall down the stairs.
Huh.
Very interesting. But mind you, what was the story that was told and this and that? And
yeah.
In 2019, because she was already sentenced to death and all that stuff, but she was allowed a new trial with a full defense through a panel of judges for the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So she had a second chance, right? In short, the panel found crucial evidence that was left out and resulted in an unfair trial for Lucio. This evidence included a psychologist who indicated he planned to testify about her demeanor during the interrogation and how it and her purported confession could have been accounted for by her abusive relationships with men. So basically how these interrogators were treating her could have forced that confession to her, because she was just saying like, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Like, it's hours in, she's pregnant, she's being showed a picture of her children dead, all that, and saying that if she doesn't admit to guilt, that her children will. So a psychologist and a social worker indicated that they would have testified about what Lucio might have been going through immediately after Mariah's death and during the interrogation, and how that may have influenced her behavior and confession according to court documents, right? But then in 2021, the same judge panel that granted her the appeal reversed the decision for a new trial, and the death sentence was reinstated. So that's just a huge blow.
Why?
I'm going to read why, and it's very wordy, so this is just for the listeners and for you to interpret, because it's just hard for me to really, you know?
Okay.
It says, a majority of the Fifth Circuit found that Lucio's conviction had to be upheld for procedural reasons under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act, the AEDPA. Judge Leslie H. Southwick, in a concurring opinion joined by 2 other judges, wrote that the AEDPA and Supreme Court precedent forced the court to overlook the difficult issue of the exclusion of testimony that might have cast doubt on the credibility of Lucio's confession. This case, though, is a clear example that justice to a defendant may necessitate a more comprehensive review of state court eventuary rulings than is presently permissible under law that is established with sufficient clarity. Who the fuck knows what that means? it's hard for me to interpret that. I don't know if
so what? It's just because it's not clear enough. They're just not going to deal with
pretty
it.
much, and just a bunch of sophisticated. I know like it's not that sophisticated when you read it, but it just sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me, really. And I have it here. If you want to read it, or like you want to check it out real quick.
I'll check it out real quick.
Yeah, because it's that little thing right here.
Yeah, because I mean that's just kind of what it sounds like off the top of my head. That it just seems like that because they don't have enough information, they're just kind of like, oh, can't really do much about it.
Pretty much. You could take it closer to you. Yeah.
All right. I'm reading this.
Yeah, it's long as fuck.
So this case, though, is a clear example that justice to a defendant may necessitate a more comprehensive review of state court evidentiary rulings than is presently permissible under law that is established with sufficient clarity. Yeah, just definitely seems like... Oh, and also the difficult issue of the exclusion of testimony that might have cast doubt on the credibility of Lucio's confession. Yeah, definitely just seems like because it's so complicated, they're like, no, we can't do it.
Nice. Well, not nice for her, but what I'm trying to say is that the reasoning just seems kind of shitty for her at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But at this point, the basically people are saying free Melissa Lucio, right? Dozens of Texas state legislators have signed for a letter urging the Board of Pardons and Parole to grant clemency. Even Kim Kardashian, the most famous porn star in the world, has championed other cases with specter of wrongful conviction, voted her support for Lucio on Facebook, which is weird for all the 85-year-olds and the 10-year-olds.
I'm sure my grandma shared that.
This is the most important piece of everything. At least five of the jurors who convicted Lucio have come forward to call her execution to be stopped. So the ones that, found her guilty are saying it should not happen because the evidence they never heard. One of the jurors was known to say, quote, "I was disheartened to learn that there was additional evidence that was not presented at trial." Her name is Melissa Quintanilla, the fourth person on Lucio's jury. And she wrote that on a declaration. She said, "I believe that
independence."
Nah. She wrote, "I believe that Miss Lucio deserves a new trial and for a new jury to hear this evidence. Knowing that I know now, I don't think she should be executed." So that to me is incredibly important because this is not coming from anybody but the people who heard all the evidence during the trial. Here we see, which we'll put up, but what I can describe as Melissa Lucio praying in an inner circle in prison. Apparently now, and when she's serving her sentence, she's become more religious and prays all the time. So with God and her faith, she's getting through her prison sentence. That's just a little picture that I saw there.
Okay.
And then so she became a devout Catholic, attending mass every week and reading the Bible daily. Pretty much, her son is just saying, to end the article off, that it would just be really difficult to lose her mother in this situation, especially given the circumstances and the whole idea of everything. And remind me, I'm gonna play a video real quick on the audio. It shouldn't get copyrighted or anything. But what do you think about this, man?
I mean, it definitely just sounds like a messy situation. It's just like I don't know where to stand on it myself. I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to believe. Yeah, because it just like obviously I would say like mother's intuition, like she would never do something like this, and especially with the fact that none of her other children have reported like abuse, and she has a lot of children. Yeah, man. So like that's a lot of people saying no, like she's not abusive. Yeah. So it's like I don't know, but I mean sometimes maybe it just takes one bad day or something like that,
or one mistake, or and a lot of what her lawyers are saying is that she did, it was her fault that the injuries occurred, but it wasn't her that induced the injuries that led to death. Like she should still be in jail is what the lawyers are saying, or with the lesser punishment, but she shouldn't be sentenced to death, because what they're saying is that she abused her kids and this abuse led to the children's death, which I don't think is necessarily the case, But then we go back to the fact where the examiner says that it had to have happened 24 hours before the death. Mm-hmm. So this article is written by CNN, and it's just difficult because then you get to the point of like, how was this article written to defend Melissa Lucio? It could be a certain bias there. I'm not trying to say she's wrong. I'm not trying to say she's right. For me, reading this article, she does not deserve to die. I don't think so. You know? But again, there's a lot of proof and stuff where I think at the very least there should be another trial. You know? It's a difficult situation. And it's a heavy situation.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just not easy, man. The last part is just nice of her, like, you know, finding faith and all that stuff, which I bring up because of the A.M.C section later. But more so, it's a lot of juicy details. And it's one of those things where, damn, man, it must suck to have her have hopes to have a second trial and get that hope taken away from her.
Yeah. So is her execution actually happening 2 days from now?
I think it's still I haven't caught up with it, but I've seen all the news at the moment, and that's crazy if it is, man. Because I don't really, I mean, I know there's a bunch of women and men that's been on, you know, the death penalty and stuff, death row. And there's a certain website that I can't remember on the top of my head, but I'll put it in the supplementary. Maybe I'll look it up right now, actually. Say some stuff.
I'm saying some stuff right now about things that are happening because that's what we do in our podcast. We talk about things that are happening because if we weren't talking about things that were happening, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Nice. I think it's called the Marshall. Yes, this is a great website. I'm going to show you right here. I think it's an incredible website.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on death penalty?
I mean, I don't know. I just...
You don't gotta answer. To be honest with you. That's a heavy question.
I don't know if I like really weigh on it one way or another. I've never like had too much of a conversation on it. I just initially I would say it's like I don't want anyone to die
for sure, or at least not be killed by the hands of the government.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's just like, you know, I would say that like no one should deserve to die and things like that. Like regardless of what you might have done. I guess I would say I'm not really for the death penalty. I would say like, you know, they can rot in prison and whatever, and that could be the punishment, but they don't gotta die.
A lot of people will say that'll cost taxpayers money, you know, to keep people in jail and this and that. And I mean, me, in my opinion, I think this is a very interesting thought. I think a lot of people, especially conservatives, are pro-execution and anti-abortion, which is incredibly interesting. Incredibly interesting if you think about it.
Even you saying that, I'm like, yeah.
Right? It's one of those things that doesn't really get said. Again, listen to that. Pro-execution, anti-abortion. That's what a lot of people, conservatives mostly are. I personally think that if you kill 10, 15 people, you should die. I think you should die. I think if you've damaged so many people in the multitude of ways that came from aggression and not anything else, like purely evident aggression, peace. You know, like that's just my opinion. Just because there's only a certain extent. I don't think that the government should be able to take away life, but I also do think that to a certain extent, when you do things like that, there's no way. I mean, maybe fix the prison system, but you know, imagine somebody who's tortured 600 people and pick only children, blind children, just make it worse, because the same person that you're allowing to walk away from that, or like at least live another day, is the same as this innocent Melissa Lucio who may or may not have done that. You get what I'm trying to say? It's all in the same area of things. So there should be room for a death penalty. I think so, even though I think it's a barbaric, crazy tradition, or a style of punishment. Sorry, not sorry though. But this is a great website. It's called the marshallproject.org.
Okay.
Really great website. When you open it up, it's a shadowed picture of a man looking down, and on the bottom it reads, from 1976 through 2020, 1,529 people were executed in America. And on the left side, you'll see most states that have the death penalty, and you can click that and you can see anybody on death row right now, read their story and find out what's happening. And anybody who's ever been on death row.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. And I think it's an amazing website. I'm really, really happy that I was able to bring it up right now. I'll put it up in the supplementary as well. Just because, stuff like this should exist and inform people, because I also wanted to bring up that there are plenty of people who have gotten away. Now, I don't say gotten away as if they avoided it. But haven't been given the death penalty, even though they were supposed to, face it. Mm-hmm. I'll read a couple.
Okay.
Let's see. We have a lady called Sabrina Butler. She was convicted and sentenced to death in Mississippi in 1990 for the death of her 9-month-old son. The baby stopped breathing, and resuscitation attempts left bruises that led police to accuse Butler of child abuse, very similar to Lucio. Mm-hmm. Medical evidence indicated that the cause of death was likely cystic kidney disease or sudden infant death syndrome. The Mississippi Supreme Court overturned Butler's conviction in 1992. So, science. Pretty much science saved their life. But not the babies. Rodriguez Crawford was convicted and sentenced to death in Caddo Parish, Louisiana, on charges that he had smothered his infant son. Medical experts later provided evidence that the pathologist who performed the autopsy missed evidence of sepsis in the blood and pneumonia in both lungs. Crawford was exonerated in 2017.
Okay.
And the last one is Vicente Benavides. He was exonerated in April 2018 after 26 years on California's death row, which is crazy. Crazy already. Wrongly convicted of raping, sodomizing, and murdering his girlfriend's 21-month-old daughter. The California Supreme Court found that his conviction was the product of extensive, pervasive, impactful, and false forensic testimony. Medical evidence showed that the girl had never been sexually assaulted and may have actually died from being hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
So, it just comes down to what the evidence is. And like I mentioned to you the other day, there was a grandmother who forced her 4-year-old to drink a whole bottle of whiskey, and the little girl died. Mm-hmm. Does this lady deserve death penalty or severe punishment?
I mean, I would say a lot of people would probably say she deserves a death penalty when we've been talking about these cases and these people are being put on death row for it.
Or lose 28 years of their life for something they never did.
I feel like that would definitely happen to that lady for sure, to be put onto death row.
Exactly. And I mean, this is fucking crazy, man. So I just wanted to play this video. This person is a big activist. Her Instagram name is Flower in Spanish. But this is just for anybody that feels worthy to the cause, that wants to really help. I'm just going to play the voice. It's somebody's personal video. Ignore this. All right.
The state of Texas wants to kill an indigenous Latina woman. Her name is Melissa Lucio, and she is scheduled to be executed in 3 days for a murder that never happened. There is multiple pieces of evidence that lead to her innocence. We have 3 days to urge the governor of Texas to grant Melissa clemency and prevent this irreversible injustice. Here's the number. You can call or leave a voicemail at 956-446-2866. Melissa has other children at home that need her, and right now she needs us. Together we can save a life.
Okay, and it says Melissa was interrogated for 5 hours. Yeah, so that's just a little thing. Again, I'm not on no side or nothing, but I also thought that was important, especially she's gonna be executed in 2 days. So
I mean, I saw that you liked it, so
oh shit.
So
Hey man, we don't give our political opinion here. That's not funny. But well said, and giving some information to contact Garrigan Abbott and his legs that don't work and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just a crazy case. All these stories I think are pretty crazy, except the DeSantis one. He's just an idiot.
I mean, with a name like DeSantis, what a deluser. God damn.
What a floor.
What can you do is getting stepped on?
Yeah. That's how you save a life. Nice. So that's our 3 stories for today, man.
Nice.
And that's how the cookie crumbles.
Damn, pretty sad cookie.
The pressed cookie right there, bro. And yeah, man.
That is not an M&M cookie right there. That's like a licorice raisin cookie that's just kind of falling apart.
Sugar free.
Gluten free.
10 days expired.
Stale. It's like a rock when you hit it against the table. It sounds like
fuck those cookies. And not Jeff Bezos though, not Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos is
fuck Bezos. I'm sure if you took a cookie to Bezos's head, his head would crack.
It would turn to money. it would ship to you in Prime. I asked my Alexa the other day, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, "Hey Alexa, what do you think of Jeff Bezos?" You know what she said?
What?
Jeff Bezos is Prime.
Wow,
I was like, that's pretty low.
I'm sure if Jeff Bezos and another bald man click their heads 3 times together, they would teleport back home. wherever that is, because it ain't Earth.
That'd be so funny. I hope he paints something with his head one day. He just dips his head in paint and just draws the Amazon logo on the wall in space. Please make that happen, Jeff Bezos.
I mean, he got into a dick-shaped rocket because he kind of looks like a dick with his bald head. You
ever seen Borat? Not Borat. Oh, no, it is Borat. The second one?
I haven't seen it.
And it is so dumb. It's so dumb movie. It's funny. It's dumb. I think it's Borat. But they wanted to make a ship. He was like, make the ship. And he sees it and he's like, why does our ship look like a penis? He's like, make it point here. And the scientist is like, no, if we do that, it won't go as fast. He's like, make it point here. He points a gun at him. Every time he's upset, he points a gun at somebody. Or he goes, and they die. Bruh. So he made the ship point here. It's mad funny, bro.
Oh, man.
But yeah, man. And, but yeah, so now we are up to
A.M.C. section.
A.M.C. section. We are at the A.M.C. section, which is, what is it, Javi?
Before I say the name, I'll just say, like, I was very hesitant about doing this movie.
Yes, sir.
And because I felt like we were just doing bangers after bangers. And the first movie that I was kind of skeptical of even doing was Lamb, because I was like, I don't know what this movie's gonna like be and whatever.
Weird as fuck movie.
And so, I thought we were on a nice roll, and I was like, as soon as you texted me and told me the movie, I was like, oh man.
And it wasn't this movie at first. So at first we were gonna do Mel Gibson's Apocalypto.
Yeah.
And it was
and I was like, all right, cool, Apocalypto. Haven't seen that. That'll be interesting to watch.
And it's a great movie. It's my first time watching the whole thing through, and maybe in the future we could discuss Apocalypto, because crazy fucking movie, man. But Mel Gibson, it was Easter that week, or Easter the whole week, right?
Mm.
And for me, I was like, no, something got into me, and I was like, the power, and I was excited. It was so I chose Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ,
and of course it's the Mel Gibson film, so it's the person who created Apocalypto, Passion of the Christ. We just found out, I don't know if you did, but Mad Max. What else was it?
He's done Mad Max. I forget what other movies
but
early on, but I know another movie he directed was Hacksaw Ridge of Andrew Garfield.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a recent movie, no?
2016.
Wow. Yeah, so obviously Mel Gibson's track record is ridiculous. He definitely has a whole bunch of movies, and is an icon in terms of the cinema world. We'll get to himself later because he's a little wild, that guy. crazy motherfucker. So we decided to discuss that movie after a serious conversation, to really discuss it in a sense where just the topic of film, and just take it as it is. And yeah, man, so I mean, you watched it not too long ago, right? Anything?
Yeah, I'll say that, like, I found it so boring at first.
Yeah. The first time I ever seen it, man, it was just the most boring movie ever.
And yeah. I fell asleep trying to watch it the first time.
How dare you?
And I was just like, man, I can't talk about this movie. I gotta like actually watch this shit. And so when I started watching it the second time, I was like, man, I can't believe how much I fell asleep through. I was like, holy shit. I thought I only fell asleep through like the last hour. No, I fell asleep through like an hour and a half of the movie. I fell asleep in the first like 30 minutes.
And so it's definitely one of those movies that if you fall asleep and wake up later, you're like, oh my God, what's on the screen?
Yo, man, I woke up at the end when everything started, like the earthquake is happening, and I was I was like, what in the San Andreas is going on? I was like, yo, man, what the fuck?
What, the 2012? Yeah, man, it's definitely a crazy movie, to put it very simplistically. And the reason I chose it is just because it's one of those films where it's just out of the ordinary, but it still falls in line within film, right? Obviously, it tells a crazy story, of Jesus and the crucifying of him, and and what led up to that, right? And for me, when I watched it the first time in the past, all I remembered was the scenes. First of all, those who don't know, that's what the movie's about. It's a retelling of the story of Christ getting crucified, for saying that he's the Son of God, right? And basically, the Jews, right? The Jews in the little area, right? Saying that he shouldn't be saying that he's not a prophet, he's not a king, and so they crucify him for basically speaking against the church. Right. And yeah, but when I first saw it, I just saw a bunch of gore, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. There's blood everywhere. But I didn't really understand the film. And it's not really that complicated. It's pretty straightforward with how it tells it. And it starts off when it opens up. The first thing that's read is he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. By his wounds we are healed. That's Isaiah 53, 700 BC. And now for
Good
this
year. Good year.
That was a great year. My past life. Shit was crazy. And the budget for this movie was $30 million. $30. And the box office,
low budget.
LD. But the box office, Jesus Christ, was $612 million worldwide.
Oh wow,
that's crazy, bro. I didn't know, man. Big shout out to Beatrice. She helped me a lot with these notes. I'm just gonna say that. Shout out to you, Beatrice. Put her picture out there. If she lets me, I'll put it. U.S. and Canada, the income was $370 million alone, and it came out February 25th, 2004, which was on Ash Wednesday. Crazy. It was filmed in
original.
Oh, so creative, Mel Gibson. Jeez. The cast. This is a quick fact. Everybody in the cast was an American except Jesus. His name was Jim Caviezel. Oh, I need glasses now. Caviezel. Let's just say that. Jim. He played Jesus. He was the only American to do so in the film. And yeah, you know, this I'll just throw out there. When you talk about something like this, it's a very controversial thing, not to just us, but in the world, right? And I'll read this. This is on history.com. A year before The Passion of Christ was released, controversy flared over whether it was anti-Semitic. Abraham Foxman, head of the Anti-Defamation League, went on record saying that Gibson's film could fuel hatred, bigotry, and anti-Semitism. Specifically, its opponents claim the movie would contribute to the ideas that Jews should be blamed for the death of Jesus, which has been at the root of much anti-Jewish violence over the course of history. For his part, Gibson categorically denied the allegations of anti-Semitism, but they continued to haunt him years after the film was released. This is crazy. I don't know if you're aware of this. In July 2006, he was arrested for driving under the influence. Mel Gibson.
Okay.
A leaked police report of the incident stated that Gibson made anti-Semitic remarks to the arresting officer. Yeah. Gibson later acknowledged the report's accuracy and publicly apologized for the remarks. Meanwhile, Christian critics of this film's story pointed to its departure from the New Testament and its reliance on works other than the Bible, such as Emmerich's diaries. So, just some food for thought, I think, when it comes to this movie, because that just sucks for this guy. Like, I'm not pitying him or nothing. I'm just saying, like, it just sucks that he did that, you know, because, you know, you put out a film like that and then you just do some shit like that. It's ridiculous, you know, and yeah.
I mean, I definitely knew, like, sort of the anti-Semitism, controversy, like, with Mel Gibson before even watching this movie and stuff.
This in particular, right? Or just anything?
Just in general, I knew that there was, like, that people perceive Mel Gibson as anti-Semitic and racist and things like that. Like, I knew he was always kind of problematic in that sense in Hollywood and whatever the case is. I made a note that, like, you know, there's like maybe like one black guy in the movie.
Yeah, actually, and there's like one little shot of him, and that's it, right? Yeah, that's interesting because when I saw the one black guy in the movie, I was like, wait, because I don't know any sense of like whether it was like racism or slavery or segregation at that time. 700, it's not 700 BC. Who knows what time? I didn't keep track of that. But you're right. There's only one shot of one black person in the whole movie, and he was like in the royal area, right?
I mean, the guy that I was thinking of is the guy that helps him carry the cross. Because I don't know if that guy's even black. He could be like light skinned.
Yeah, he even seemed like white to me, or like Jewish, like, you know, like something like that. So not that black people can't be Jews, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So it's just I always that's like the one note that I kind of made on top of the fact that it's like, yeah, you could definitely kind of perceive the sort of like Jews are the reason why Jesus died and whatnot. Shit.
And some people even say Jesus himself was black. So that's a whole discussion because he's from the Middle East and there's no way somebody could be that color with being in the sun all the time is the reasoning. That's interesting. I was thinking of, we're going to get more on the story in a bit, but there's a scene where he goes to the king. And in the king, he has all his other people aside, everybody's pretty much royalty except the one guy who's like the jester. And there's one shot, a close up of one person who's black, who's within the royal area. And he's like, you know, has jewelry on and stuff like that. It was just like a quick 3-second. And then never again did I see. I didn't think the guy who helped Jesus carry the cross was black or even looked like it. Just because everybody else is so white, you know. But Interesting. And all right, I'm gonna say this. I don't know if this is offensive, so I'm gonna keep this in. You can block this out.
Okay.
So Brian, our friend, he said this to me. He was like, when I said, I posted on my Instagram story that Sundays there was a picture of cake, Jesus, cross, and pecan pie, and he was like, "You're watching Passion of the Christ?" And I was like, "Yeah, just for the podcast." And he was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Have you seen it before?" He's like, "Yeah, I watched it." And I'm like, "What'd you think?" He's like, "I mean, Jesus got whipped and so did a bunch of black people, like, it's, he's basically saying it's basically not the same thing, but it's just like, why aren't the stories there for black people, which there are in terms of movies and stuff like that. But I thought the comparison was pretty funny. Like, like not funny, but just more so there's this emphasis on Jesus when there's a bunch of people that went through that too, so if you keep that in there, you're not anyway.
What's it called? Watch Roots.
Roots? I never seen Roots.
Like that super long like TV movie on like a PBS or whatever. Watch Roots. That's all about slavery and stuff like that.
I believe it, man.
So I mean, there are definitely medias that kind of 12 Years a Slave too. That's also a great movie about
just in
slavery.
the sense of like the Messiah. Like this person, Jesus went through this, therefore. He's the king for our sins, but so did black people. Like, what are they the kings for? Like, the Jesus for? Yeah. But they also, like, a lot of black people during that time look towards Christ and religion to get through those times. So, not to make light of that situation and stuff like that, but I thought Brian said was pretty funny. And the way he said it, did his words OD dirty by mixing them up. I want to say this, though. This is super weird, and there's a lot of... When it comes to this movie, there's not much I want to discuss in terms of, like, the religious aspect, because... reality, the story is what the only thing I want to discuss, but there's a lot of weird things that occurred throughout the making of the film that I really want to address. Okay. And before this, right? Remember we had the conversation on the phone talking about whether we should do this movie or not? I just realized this, and I swear and everything, I didn't know this. When I was talking to you, I was at a bar, right? I called, you heard me order my beer and stuff. Guess what the name of that bar is?
What?
The Gibson.
The Gibson?
And who made this movie?
Oh.
I swear everything. I had no idea. That's fucking weird, man. Just want to say that. That's so interesting. But yeah, so
I thought of Gibson guitars. I'm sorry. I wasn't there with you right away.
That's funny too. Throwing a guitar solo.
Mel Gibson playing a guitar with Shrek.
Go. With Shrek. And Madonna. All right. Anyway. So the movie starts off. It just opens up with the quote: "He was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. By his wounds, we are healed." Right. So and the movie opens up with Jesus in the forest with his disciples. It's Peter and the other guys. The names are hard for me to remember just because, but it's basically Jesus praying to God and his disciples saying that, the night before Jesus had mentioned a story about betrayal and that one of them essentially would betray him. Later we find out this is true, and one of his disciples, Judas, betrays him and turns in Jesus to the emperor for 30 silver tokens,
to use at the arcade.
Yeah. You got me there, bro. The arcade of Christ.
I love how long that took for you.
Too long. Jesus in the arcade, go. That's for the YouTube video. Check out the YouTube video. As he's praying, Jesus says, "Save me from the traps they set for me." That one man can bear the full burden of sin. And then the Satan comes out. And, Satan represented by this bald person with the snake coming from their foot. And the Satan says, "No one man can carry this burden, I tell you." And the Satan says to Jesus, "It's far too heavy, and that saving their souls is too costly." This is just crazy because the serpent comes out. And Jesus just stomps the shit out that fucking snake. He just goes boom, and I roll my nose. I'm like, damn, he stomped the shit out that fucking snake, bro. Tell me now, he went hard on that shit, bro. I was like, you didn't gotta go that hard, bro. And I want to put that scene, so we'll put that scene first, and then we're back. And please watch the YouTube video because it's crazy when he stomps. So
you should just put it on repeat.
I will, because it's ridiculous, bro. He went so hard. And eventually men with flames and helmets were they were searching for Jesus of Nazareth, who was a rabbi. And essentially Judas, who turned in, is there and turn in Jesus, and they start fighting. So for me, in the initial, like, again, this is a religious movie, but I wrote here, it felt very Lord of the Ringsy. You know, I've never seen Lord of the Rings.
I was also kind of thinking about Lord of the Rings.
Right? I wrote here, epic religious battle. And because then they're fighting and it's like, oh my God, there's so much action, which does happen in the Bible, I'm assuming, you know? And now there's a part where one of the disciples, Peter, is defending Jesus. You know, he has a knife and he's trying to stop the captors from coming at Jesus. He cuts off the ear of one man and has the knife to another man's neck. And Jesus looks at him and he says, put the knife down. And the guy, Peter, is like, what the fuck, man? Like, you know, I'm trying to save a life. And Jesus is like, those who live by the sword die by the sword, you know? I'd like that. I like that very much. Because, again, like, despite anything, I think a lot of these things is just kind of like English literature as well. How you can really interpret it how you feel. And we can even look at it just as like any war that's happening, just like Ukraine and Russia. Really, of course, the Ukrainians are the ones that are suffering realistically and this and that. But, you know, going by these methods, like how Putin is doing and all that stuff, that, you know, you may not literally do it, but there's something there that, you know, what's driving you to do this is what's going to result in your end as well, whether it be in however way you think it is, you know, because a lot of this is interpretation, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize as well, that, you know, the Bible and all that stuff is left to be interpreted to how you feel and not literally, you know? And yeah, so, and I think I wrote there already in the beginning, Jesus is leading by example by not encouraging rebellion against his captor. And that's when the real like torture starts. They throw Jesus off a bridge with him hanging by his body.
Even real quick,
what's up?
Jesus puts the dude's ear back on.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that I saw him put his hand on his ear, but I didn't know he put it back on.
Yeah,
savage. That's crazy.
Puts his fucking ear back on. That's why that guy's like so like stunned.
Oh,
he was just like, oh my God, holy shit, I got my fucking ear back.
What a flex. That's pretty dope. I guess Van Gogh was unlucky.
I not to really spoil anything, but there's a guy in the Northman who gets his nose cut off.
Wait, I spoiled the whole movie. I'm trying to watch that movie today. So, you know, everything everywhere at once. Some guy has glasses. That's all. Okay.
But with this guy getting his nose cut off, and after like seeing Passion of Christ, I was like, man, only if that guy had Jesus.
Just Jesus goes to the little tissue. There, my child. And so when Jesus, I didn't know that actually. That's crazy. So maybe and the people who are attacking witness it, right? Do they witness it? So they already know what Jesus is capable of then, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they're kind of just like, they don't know what to believe. They're just kind of like, oh shit. All right, well, whatever. We got to keep going.
Facts. And then after that, that's when Jesus gets thrown off the bridge, hanging from his body from chains. And you hear like he falls and his body gets upheld by the chains, but you hear this like grunting in pain. And he looks over and it's either Peter or David, one of those guys.
I think it was Judas, actually.
Judas looking at him. Oh yeah, it was. And Judas is looking at Jesus helpless because they're pulling him back up. And as soon as Judas looks to his left, he hears growling. And then a monster comes out of nowhere, a demon, bro. That scared the fuck out of me. I wrote right here, what the fuck was that monster? And I have a little image of it, which I'll put right here for the YouTube video. And that to me was random. And to me, I was like, whoa, this is very, again, I was like, no, this is a religion, you know, movie. So there's going to be factors of that. It was just interestingly done. Again, it still gave me that Lord of the Rings vibe, you know, Game of Thrones, this type of shit. And so yeah, now Jesus has been brought into basically the town, you know, and a lot of people, you know, particularly like Jesus' mom and all that stuff, they plead that Jesus is being wrongfully arrested in order to cover up crimes that, you know, the hierarchies have committed themselves, his captors, you know. His captor particularly is Caiaphas. That's the name of the people who took him in. And Jesus himself is hated by the Pharisees. They call Jesus the Nazarene troublemaker, known as he portrays himself as a king. He says I'm a king, and they know Jesus, and they say, some say you're Elijah, known to have been carried off into heaven on a chariot. And Jesus responds, if I have spoken evil, then tell me. And they say this. They say Jesus cures the sick with magic with the help of devils, that he cast out devils with the help of devils. He calls himself the King of Jews. He said he would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. He calls himself the Son of God, and that he claims he's the bread of life. And if we don't eat his flesh or drink his blood, we won't inherit eternal life. He's saying this in front of the town and the crowd. So once those accusations are thrown out, everybody's like, everybody's mad and
Get
shit.
a load of this guy.
Imagine how wrong he felt when he came back. He was like, "Oh God." That's bad. And this is all being said to the emperor of the area, right? Where is this exactly? I know it's in Italy, literally, but is it? Where is it supposed to be?
I think it's like in the Middle East, is it not?
In the Middle East, right? I'm just trying to say, like
connecting the Middle East to like Rome and things like that, because the Romans were there and whatnot.
Okay, and they had the helmets and shit like that and everything. Okay, so this is all happening in a town square, and all the accusations are being spewed to the emperor in front of the whole town, right? And basically, when they ask Jesus, like, "Are you the Son of God?" and he says, "Yes, I am," and they basically start deciding whether or not they're going to punish him, and it cuts to a shot of Peter. Peter is there, and he was with Jesus, right, during the little time. And they start saying like, "Hey man, this guy was with Jesus, earlier," and he denies ever knowing Jesus, or
he's like, "Nope, I've never met that man in my life."
He's like, "Who the fuck is that?" He's the one that said, "Get a load of this guy." But everybody keeps saying like, "No, bro, you know Jesus, man." He's like, nah, you got the wrong guy.
Jesus who?
And now this I like a lot because it's very interesting. So once he starts denying him, it cuts to a shot in the past, which is what they do many times during this movie. They cut to Jesus' time in the past, and in the past, Jesus says to Peter, he says, no, Peter says to Jesus, he says, "Jesus, wherever you go, Lord, I will follow, to prison and even to death." And I wrote there, "What a liar." And Jesus responds to Peter, he says, "Before the cock crows 3 times you will deny me." And Jesus was right, because before the flashback, Peter denied him 3 times to the crowd of everybody. And they looked at each other in the eye. And I was like, damn, man, like, just, of course, Jesus called it, but just, how real is that in life, to people who have been betrayed 3 times or more or whatever. Just
fool me once.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Shame on me.
Fool me 3 times.
Fuck, I forget how it goes from there.
Stop fooling me, man. And so again, Judas turned in Jesus, and then he finds out. He's like, "Whoa, like, what are you doing to this guy? Like I turned in an innocent man." He's just like, he gives his money back, and he's like, "I don't want you, to fucking turn in Jesus. He's innocent." And Caiaphas responds that if you think you've betrayed innocent blood, that's your affair. And after that, Judas walks away. He has no money. He betrayed Jesus. And then he starts to see images of evil children, dead animal, which is a sheep, right? A dead sheep. Like he sees the children that go up to him, and their faces morph into old men, old evil creatures, and he's like, kind of like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Yeah, it's like a bad acid trip.
Oh my God, that sounds so scary, so scary. And he runs away, to the hills where he sees a sheep, covered in flies, and flies are all over. And what does he do after?
He fucking hangs himself on the tree right there.
That shit was crazy. And the crazy thing, I don't know if this is part of on purpose. I'm sure it is, because everything in movies is on purpose. Once he hangs himself next to the dead sheep, the flies go away. Like there's no more flies. I
didn't notice that.
There's no more flies around the sheep.
When I started to rewatch a movie a second time, when I was trying to find myself where I fell asleep, I fast forward to that part. And I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck is going on?"
What did
I was like, "Go back."
That's pretty funny. That is. And I have the shot right here, which I thought was a beautiful shot, which we'll put up into the thingy. But it's a great shot. Like, just in terms of the movie. It sucks for this guy. But it's a beautiful, beautiful shot. He shouldn't have betrayed Jesus, though. And so now that, goes back to Jesus being brought up to the town, and Emperor is looking at Caiaphas, and he's like, "Yo, like, it's unlawful for us to condemn any man to death if you don't know what the crime is you're bringing him in for," right? Like, they brought in Jesus about 5 days ago into Jerusalem. That's where they are.
Okay.
Jerusalem. and they ask Jesus, like, are you a king? And he says, my kingdom is not of this world. All men who hear the truth hear my voice. And fucking, it's basically that the greatest wrongdoing that Jesus has done is he claims to be the Messiah, the king promised to the Jews, and that he has his followers, which are the disciples, that are going to follow him no matter where he goes. And the emperor can't make up his mind on whether or not to kill this guy.
Yeah, he's super indecisive. He's like, I don't know. I mean, like, this guy seems pretty okay.
He's pretty cool, man. Like, flex with the hair and shit.
He's like, get a load of this guy. Like,
positively. I just want to keep like the whole movie, which is funny. You just watch the scene, you're like, Jesus Christ, and you just laugh, because it's kind of, it's like if you made a movie about Franky and saying was Frank. Like, oh God,
you keep doing it,
man. You'll believe it out. I keep saying my last name on the podcast. It's you guys making me say that shit. Anyway, more work for you. Explosion! 17 explosions. I got you. Equality. So the emperor, he's looking at Jesus. He can't make up his mind. He's like, man, I just don't think this guy did anything wrong. I think these guys, Caiaphas and his men, have a different motive. So he says, you know what? I'm not going to make the choice. I'm going to send him to the king. And man, this is the funniest part of the movie. Not the situation. The guy's hair. Do you remember this guy's hair?
Oh, with the wig?
Bro, look at this guy right here. Yo, what is with this hair, bro? Look at this guy. I'm going to put up every photo I'm looking at right now, because it's ridiculous, bro. Mel Gibson fucked up with that one, man. Jesus Christ. And he asked Jesus with this terrible wig, he says, is it true that you restore sight to the blind? And Jesus just stays silent. He doesn't say anything. And kind of the king just disregards him. He throws the jester at him, tells him, you go hang out with the jester because you are just nothing to me. And he gets sent down to the emperor. So, at this point, the emperor is left with the decision to, do I not execute this man, for wrongdoing that he doesn't believe. And when he talks to his wife, he's like, I don't see this guy as wrong. I don't know what to do. And I think this is the parts that I do like about this movie, because certain things that they say I think are very interesting. And I love that you have to read the captions, because it's like reading the Bible,
Oh yeah, the whole thing is in Aramaic.
Yeah, there we go. Often it says Aramaic and Latin, both of them, right? But are they the same thing or
no? Because again, like the Romans are there and stuff, so that's why they're speaking Latin at times because of the Romans.
Got you. And he's asking his wife, he's like, what do I do? And she says to him, which again can be applied to anybody's life. She says, if you will not hear the truth, no one can tell you. And I thought that was really fucking dope, man, because it's true. Like, you're denying what you already know. You're not allowing yourself to see what you have already seen, which is the truth in the person, And I thought that was pretty dope. He says, the emperor says, if I don't condemn this man, Caiaphas will start a rebellion. And
if he does condemn him, then Jesus's disciples will start some shit.
And so essentially, it comes down to a decision where the emperor says, every year I free one man who's jailed. And he says, do you want Jesus to be free, or do you want this mass murderer to be free? And it's Barabbas, right? Mm-hmm. And Caiaphas is like, free Barabbas. We want Jesus dead. And Barabbas is a murderer. This I never knew. And they let Barabbas free. Yeah. I was like, bro, that's crazy, bro.
The whole crowd's like, fuck yeah.
Barabbas. Free Barabbas.
One dude chugs a beer and throws a can down.
Facts, bro. And Barabbas, if you want me in the podcast, please. You want to see him on marshallproject.org? You see Brad? It's funny because he just keeps smiling at the guys, the guards. Yeah. He takes off his things. He's like, yeah. He's free. So they free that guy.
He starts crowd surfing.
That would be cool as fuck. I wish they did that shit. And now we basically get to the real grit of the movie where Jesus gets...
Jesus. Yeah, at this point, the rest of the movie is just kind of like borderline torture porn.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's either hostile or this, and it's pretty intense, man. I don't remember. But also before anything, the emperor says, no, I will have Jesus chastised, not crucified. So he's like, I want this man punished, but I do not want him dead. And so they continue to chastise him. And as they are, which is basically whip the shit out of him with different tools. Like first it was just whips, then it was whips that really tease into his back and rip out flesh, even to the point where they turn him over and whip him in the stomach and tear out flesh from his ribs. This guy is just getting fucked, even in his head and all stuff like that. It's terrible. And as the royal is looking on, the devil is behind the people, just looking at Jesus get tortured and stuff like that, kind of sneaking her way in or himself into everything and everywhere. Like being there but not being there. And I thought that was interesting because I don't remember that like Satan being part of the whole thing, which I'm sure of course they are, you know?
Imagine if they weren't. Imagine if Mel Gibson was like, and then the devil.
Just cause. And the mom has to watch the whole time. This is crazy to me. So he basically gets whipped, tied his hands up to a thing. And the wife of the emperor, she sees the mom and the daughter watching Jesus, get, fucked up, their brother, their son. Mm-hmm. And she brings them towels, right? Because they're crying. And I thought she brought them towels because they were crying. And I was wrong as fuck. They were brought towels to clean up the blood of Jesus.
I was confused why they were brought towels at all.
Oh my God. And when I saw them have to clean up the blood, I'm like, y'all are some savages, bro. Then we see a shot of the
savage.
Oh, D, brother. Animals. Like, I can't even give us some napkins to wipe the tears first. But then she even starts cleaning the blood with like her headwear. And even here you see the Satan looking at Jesus again with like a little old man baby, and the baby smiling and shit. More savagery. And
on a scale of 1 to savage, how savage is that, Frankie?
Savage, bro. It was ridiculous. And then it cuts back again to Jesus talking to his disciples, and he says, remember also that no servant is greater than his master. If they persecute me, they persecute you. And with the whole no servant is greater than his master, again, like, regardless of your faith and stuff, just know that I see a lot of trending posts where it says, I greet the janitor the same way I greet the CEO. And that to me is pretty much this reinterpreted. There's a lot of things that it may not say that you're religious because you say those things, but again, in terms of just words being words and where they come from, it's a reinterpretation into modern life with those things. And I think that's very true, which I think you should do. I think you should treat everybody the same, not just the people who are going to pay you the most money, and so little things like that I think are applicable. And Jesus is then dragged off. And he's hurt. And this is when they put the crown of thorns onto Jesus.
And they're like, hey, you like that, King?
And he's like,
no.
A
load of this guy.
He's like, no, I don't like that very much. But Jesus, even after being berated and hurt really badly, because the emperor stops it. He says, you're killing this man. Like, I didn't ask for this. So you're killing him. But then he goes to the crowd and he's like, I've punished this man. And then they're like, we still want him crucified. And everyone's like, oh my God.
What the fuck?
And even that, but then the emperor is like, he dips his hand into water. He washes his hand. He's like, I rid myself of this guy's, death. Like, it is you whose blood it will be on, not me. Because he doesn't see the wrongdoing of Jesus. It's the people who do. Mm-hmm. So he was like, nope, that's all you. Karma free. And
he's like, all right, I done all I can.
Fact, which is really not that helpful, to be honest with you. Pretty lazy. And yeah, so when they're putting the thorns on Jesus' head, and Jesus says, you have no power over me except what is given you from above. Therefore, it is you who delivered me to you who have the greater sin. And I thought that was pretty dope. But he says that before the guy washes his hands, but I think it's interesting that pretty much they're only punishing themselves, which is eventually what they really are, right? Mm-hmm. That is not Jesus who did anything wrong. It's the people who are doing themselves wrong by doing Jesus wrong, which is a mindfuck in its own. And then they made Jesus carry this cross. So now we get to like the facts in the movie. The cross was actually 150 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Like actually. And oh man,
that kind of reminds me of for the first Iron Man movie, he actually had the suit to wear and stuff on set, and that suit was like 100 pounds or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, that's mad heavy, bro. Damn. Again, well, they really constructed this crazy, and I'm telling you, man. Right now, we're just kind of retelling the story, just because it's the story in itself, and believe what you believe.
And that's what we do.
That's what we do.
we retell what we watch and read and listen to.
And then you listen to us, listen to ourselves, listen to the movie.
And then you might want to watch a movie or listen to the thing or read the thing, and then you might want to get more involved. Hit us up on the social. Boom, bam, plug.
Sponsored by the Bible. And so before the real intense, now he's gonna get crucified. Jesus looks up as he's carrying the cross, and he says to God, he says, "I am your servant, Father, your servant and the son of your handmaid." And he says, what he says right here? Well, basically that. He says he's your servant. And this was a really strong part. His mother is still looking at Jesus. At one point, Jesus falls, and it flashes back to Jesus as a little kid. And Jesus, as a little kid, just trips up and falls by mistake. And the mother runs to him as any parent would, caring parent would. And she picks little Jesus up, and she's like, "I'm here." And right now, as Jesus is getting crucified and stuff, he falls after being bloody on the thorns on his head.
And he's getting whipped as he's carrying the cross, too.
Man. And just spit on, and also just wine being thrown in his face. And after he falls, the mom comes to him still. She's like, "I'm here." And he says to his mom, he says, "See, mother, I make all things new." Which is wow, just outside the story, just as a movie, that was just really that made me sad. I saw that and I was like, damn, bro, that's really strong to me. I was like, oh man. And,
Jesus.
And then we get this beautiful shot of, a lot of the shots in the movie were great. I think in just terms of filmmaking, I thought it was awesome. We get the shot of the whole outside perspective of people marching down, because they're basically marching up, to the hill where they're going to place the cross to crucify Jesus Christ. And, Jesus of Nazareth. And how can I say? Then I don't know who this guy is. But you're right. He is light skinned. This guy right here.
Yeah.
Damn, I wish I knew who he was. He's not Judas, because Judas is already dead.
Yeah.
So he's either David.
He was just a guy pulled off the street because he was just kind of looking at it for too long, I guess.
Oh, and he was stopped. He just didn't like it anymore. That was happening.
Yeah, I guess. And they just kind of felt his vibe of yo, this guy. He likes Jesus.
And so they're like, "You're going to get crucified too, man." So they crucified this guy too later on,
But they don't crucify him.
This guy right here?
The guy that helps carry the cross? No, they don't crucify him.
They don't put him on the cross too at the end?
No.
There's there's three people.
There's three people, including Jesus, but it's not that guy. That when they get to the top, they kind of just scurry him off.
Okay.
They're like, "All right, get out of here."
Get
and
out
he
of
just
here.
kind of leaves.
Scram.
Yeah.
Well, whoever this guy is, he helps out Jesus, and he can't stand looking. He's like, "Leave him alone." He's like, he just says leave him alone. He hated it. He screamed at everybody, and I thought that was really well done by him as an actor. It's a great scene, really powerful scream, a lot of emotion stemmed from it, And I thought that was a really great scene. I wish I could give him credit, but I have no idea who he is. And then we cut to Jesus talking to his people. Again, a cutback. He has a following. Flashback. He has a following, and what's starting to be realized and really more represented is that Jesus has a following of a bunch of people who believe in him, that he is the Son of God. Right now, you see here, there's 10 to 20 people, and he says to them, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. For if you only love those who love you, what reward is there in that?" And I think that's important. I think it's important just because, it kind of goes down to that death penalty stuff. Should we be killing the people and that have done wrong to your neighbor? And it may not have an answer to that because it's all vague and really loose end, but I think that's a real conversation to have. It may be why not maybe in terms of reasoning, but it could strike in terms of literature, why we have the discussion of why you may be anti-death penalty and I'm pro, it's just, what good does it do to kill somebody, and what good does it do to not kill somebody, and vice versa, know? So that's a very interesting thing, especially how we talked about it. But again, a lot of things in the Bible were discussed. So it's a lot of people like to see correlation and things in this and that, but some things are just actually just coincidences. But bro, when I get to what happens on the set, crazy, bro. Crazy. And then it goes back to Jesus at the dinner table talking to his disciples. He says, "There's no greater love for a man to lay down his life for his friends." And then we cut to Jesus getting demolished again. But then he says, "Love one another as I have loved you. So love one another." And he's still just getting demolished, and he's getting tied to the cross. And Jesus says, "You believe in me. You know that I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but by me. And this I thought was crazy, man, because now at this point, you know, because really there's not much to talk about in terms of what's happening within except the flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But right now he's getting stuck to the crucifix. He's looking crazy. His body is covered up in gashes. His lips are almost like gone. And he still yells to God, his Father. He says, Father, forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's wild, bro. It's like, bro, like, what? You know?
I mean, definitely, like, the fact that he could withstand all this pain and stuff, I think is just kind of, like, what speaks to sort of, like, his powers.
Yeah.
In a way. It's just, like, he can just withstand this much pain.
Just for the love of God, or because he said, I'm your servant, right, to God, so he's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to God, God, as he's being raised up in the crucifix, they lower, I don't know how this makes sense verbally, but he's laying flat on the cross, and then they pick it up and push it to the floor. So he falls to the floor, face down, with the weight of the 150-pound cross above him, which is crazy. He basically gets sandwiched with the cross in the ground.
And they don't show it too. Like they don't show the actual action of the sandwiching.
Oh,
happening.
no. They just like, doom, you know?
Yeah, which I was kind of like, oh, thank God. Like, there were some really rough shots in this movie. I was like, ugh.
And right before this, like, we heard the Mel Gibson interview on the show, and he says, a lot of it is really strong, and it is, you know, it's like, you know, it's really strong. How do you represent a story like this, you know, with this? And I mean, it's harsh, man. It's visually, it's just ridiculous. You know, I didn't know this, but when your hands are spread apart like this, like, go like this real quick, right?
Okay.
It's harder to breathe when your hands are across. So if you try to take a deep breath, like, it's harder than if you're like, you know, we just did it. That's why we're doing it. And so that's why he's like this. And during the film, if you notice in one of the scenes, it's very, very hard to capture. I didn't see it myself. The actor, we're going to get a little more into this now. He actually had a little mark on his face that was blue, which when happened, it's a sign of asphyxiation. So during this filming of it, he actually experienced that during the shot of his arms being across from the crucifix and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. And it made it to the movie. That's just wild, man. And so much more shit happened. I'm telling you, I'm like, Jesus. and then the guy, this is the guy I don't know who he's with. Was one of them. There's 3 people at the end of the movie where they're being crucified.
I think those are just kind of 2 random dudes.
Yeah, because I don't know, because he says, like, to Jesus, he's like, please remember me when you go to paradise. You know.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I think he was just saying that because he knows, like, what's going on. But I thought they were just 2 random dudes.
Okay. I thought they were his disciples in the forest.
Nah, I mean, I don't think so. But
Jesus says, amen, I tell you, on this day you shall be with me in paradise. And the guy on the left, I don't know what he did.
He's like, nah, fuck this guy. He's really like, get a load of this guy.
And so the crow comes, and the crow, because he's crucified as well, so his hands are useless, and he's just there. The crow comes and just pecks his eye. I was like, damn, bro, that shit must hurt, bro. It just kept pecking him, and the guy's like, leave. Then the mom kisses Jesus' foot. They're playing Yahtzee in front of Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy. They're just literally watching this man die and finding it entertaining. And Jesus looks up at God, his Father, God, and he says, why have you forsaken me? Like, abandoned me, you know? And then Jesus just passes away. But he says, before that, he says, Father, in your hands I commend my spirit. There's a beautiful shot right there of all 3 of them being crucified. And then the saint is like,
and then, well, like, one like little raindrop falls.
Oh, beautiful shot too.
I think everything kind of trembling.
I think as soon as Jesus died, the raindrop comes down, right?
Yeah, and like everything kind of trembles, and you're like, oh, whoa, the fuck?
Javi wakes up, he's like, what the hell is happening? And then Saint's like, yeah. Put the photo, it's mad funny.
And then everyone's like, yo, we gotta get out
of here. We gotta get the fuck out of here.
It's like a storm coming in. Fucking weird.
And even then they're like, make sure he's dead. And they stick the spear right into Jesus's like side.
The guy gets sprayed with his blood.
It's just there like,
And I think like because we see the flashback too where he's giving his disciples like a drink of his blood and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that like what happened to that guard is like when he got sprayed with the blood, maybe he tasted it and he like the way he fell to his knees, he was just kind of like,
oh wow, that's a great
oh man, what have I done?
Like that sucks for him though. Gross. He drank blood. And stuff goes to shit. And in 3 days is when Jesus is supposed to, rebuild the temple and stuff. It goes to a shot of Caiaphas looking at his temple destroyed. And he's just crying, probably knowing that he did wrong by killing Jesus and that he really was the Messiah, the Son of God. And right here at the end, just at the very end, there's a close-up of Jesus' face. He's naked, right? And they come down to his hands, and his hands have a hole in them, which is gross. And pretty much Jesus resurrects. And what's to happen next in the next few days, which we just found out on the Stephen Colbert show. Mel Gibson makes a movie called The Resurrectionist, which involves the 3 days of Jesus coming back, And, that would describe the movie in short, but, I genuinely don't think that a lot of people, even myself, I didn't know that's the story of Jesus Christ, So it's to be taken as you interpret. But I just think for me, my favorite part of the movie is realistically just the dialogue. Like, I know that technically is the Bible, but it's like what can be taken in terms of those lessons from the dialogue. I think they're very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a religious man myself, but I've read the Bible before.
Oh, yeah.
I read it a while ago. I definitely want to reread it because I don't remember it well.
Yeah.
At this point, but I definitely was I wasn't hesitant about watching this movie just because since I wasn't religious or anything like that. And it wasn't anything of my belief, I can't watch this movie. But it was just kind of this is such a religious movie. And I don't know what to say about religion sometimes. It just kind of it's something that I don't want to touch of a 6-foot pole sometimes. Yeah. And even when we were all talking about it, you, me, Piero, and Lucas and stuff,
we had a very long conversation about just religion that came out of nowhere. It went from space, it went from basketball to space to Jesus, and then it just continued from there.
All at once. Jesus riding a rocket to slam dunk.
There was drugs involved. There was sushi I left here. I was so upset.
But even with that kind of conversation, I didn't fully involve myself in that conversation just because it's I just feel so weird about how to insert myself into the conversation. But I mean, even with watching this movie, I would say it was definitely in terms of filmmaking, it was definitely well made and whatever. The editing was good and stuff like that. I wasn't too crazy about the cinematography. I thought it was okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was fine.
Much. Yeah.
Just in terms of filmmaking, it was a fine movie. And it's funny because I remember when we were talking about it on the phone, I had said that this is a controversial movie, and you said that you had not thought so. And what was funny is that when I was finally going to watch a movie that you sent me the link to, thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to pay for shit, to be honest with you. A little bit of ads, but it's okay. Tubi, shout out to Tubi.
Yeah, from Tubi, on Tubi, in the description, in the first sentence, it's the controversial Mel Gibson movie.
Yeah.
And I was no, this movie is totally controversial. And I was looking at some of the Letterboxd reviews for this movie too when I was done watching it, and the reviews are so good. And one review is just straight up that said the book is better.
Can't go wrong.
But I saw one pretty intense review from someone that was agnostic who thought that the movie was really good.
What does agnostic mean again?
That you're just kind of basically on the fence.
Got you.
That you don't necessarily believe in it, but you wouldn't deny it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. And that person really loved the movie and stuff. There was another person who was Christian, or I'm sorry, Catholic, or I forget which one. But they were just really upset with this movie and didn't like it at all and gave it 1 star and said that it was an insult to their religion and this and that, whatever the case is.
It sounds to me like the guy who's not coming back to Ben and Jerry's. You just lost one religious guy. Oh, if I may say real quick, I'm employed at this dog cafe stuff, right? Where there's dogs barking and I serve coffee, right? And, I'm just there one day watching, a movie. I think I'm watching Sopranos, right?
Okay.
And I got a lot of, how you doing in me right now? Gabagoo and stuff like that, because Sopranos. And some guy walks in, he's like, hey, man, and I'm like, hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? And I'm in a good mood. I'm fasting. I think so. No, I'm not fasting. I have been fasting. And he comes in, he's like, and we get a lot of complaints about the dogs barking, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey man, the dogs. I'm like, yeah, what about them? And he has a dog with him. He's like, this barking, and I mean, it's crazy, you know, they're barking all day, all night, you know, we hear it, you know, we're this and that, you know, we're complaining and stuff, and it's like, what are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do with the dog? I'm like, yo, I can't do nothing about that. Like, there's nothing I can do, right? He's like, yeah, but it's all day and it's all night, and I look at him and his dog, and I'm like, sir, like, you have a dog, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, does your dog ever bark? He's like, no. I'm like, your dog never barks? And he's like, well, you know, when the phone rings. I'm like, well, would you look at that? You know, like, this is something you can't control, right? He's like, yeah, man, but you know, I guess the whole building's gonna have to call 311 until we shut you guys down. I'm like, yo, do whatever you want, man. Have a great day. Do exactly that. He leaves. And I think to myself, I'm like, like, think about it, right? He's complaining about the dogs barking because it's too annoying to him, right? But I thought of it as him calling 311, and all those people calling 311 are like dogs barking to 311 for a situation they really can't shut us down, you know? And I just like that little translation of things, you know? Like, you're complaining about barking by barking. That's funny. That's my little Jesus. That was my little Harvey P. Carr moment, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, back to the religious Ben and Jerry's, man.
Man, no, I mean, even at that guy, when he called, I was just kind of like, it didn't put me in a bad mood, because I was just kind of like, what a guy to think that, like, someone like me, an ice cream scooper, has control over something like that. It's like,
yeah. In the name of justice, scoop. That'll be $3.95, sir.
Yo, man, our small was like $6,
Jesus
like
Christ.
2 scoops.
That's the real crime. That's like the bags, them stealing $3,000 bags. Fuck that, man. They just do them dirt. They just did them justice. Fucking And what I wanted to say is that, like, you know, to the controversy thing, like, no doubt it's controversial, but, you know, to, like, the KKK, right? You know what's controversial? A black man existing. Mm-hmm. You know, like, to somebody who that guy, you know, who hates dogs barking. You know what's controversial to him? Dogs barking. You know, to his peace and stuff. And even though he owns a dog that barks, and I think that's why I say, like, it's controversial, but what is these days? You know, like, today, especially now more than ever. Everybody's like, oh no, I don't agree with this, and I must, like, how we shouted earlier to each other, you know, like, that's how I feel. It's like the film exists.
I'll tell you something that's not controversial.
Bubblegum.
Well, you know, bubblegum. Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty good one,
right? You can't really.
I was gonna say. I was
so calm. I was waiting for that. Where's the racist bubblegum? Where's the xenophobic bubblegum?
But I was gonna say coffee.
No, I don't know.
A lot of people like coffee. It's pretty unanimous.
But you know what? I didn't bring this up earlier, but I'll bring it up now. When I worked in Starbucks, right? Now that I can say past tense. This was when, like, the Wall Street, like, there was a big ass, like, controversy in Wall Street where, like, everybody lost a lot of money, and we got a letter, like a national letter for all the workers, and it read, hey guys, you know, hey partners from Sour Schultz. He was like, you may notice today a bunch of disgruntled customers coming into your workplace environment. This may be due to the Wall Street, you know, occurrence that happened yesterday. And he's like, we just want you to understand that, you know, this frustration may be coming from these guys, and we just encourage you to be a little more patient and understanding of these customers being more disgruntled. And I'm like, yo, so I'm supposed to tolerate these dickheads who I can't control none of that, and I'm supposed to be more tolerant of that just because they have their own situations? You don't think I have my own situation? Fuck that, you know? So it's just one of those things, you know, where, again, companies are tied into politics, but it's like, that's not my concern, you know? And that to me is very interesting, you know, because, you know, that was the same time where a lot of, like, it was the election too. They also did the same thing when the election was happening, when Trump got elected. They were like, hey, like, let's not, you know, be upset with our customers who may be on the side of this or that type of politics. And like, let's calm down, guys. And it's like, what? You know, so my bad. I just forgot to bring it up earlier, so I'll bring it up right now. The opposite of bubblegum. But that's interesting to me.
It's not too much of a beehole. It's just kind of like a bee call.
A bee call. Yeah.
It's like a recall, but a bee call.
I like that. There's layers to this shit. And I wanted to bring up, so remember what you mentioned, like, there's not a lot of movies like Passion of the Christ, which I will say there's not like a huge movie, and you can't make a movie about Allah because you can't, well, no, like Islam, right? Mm-hmm. You can't depict Muhammad in film or anything. Like, they're goddamn serious about that. In France, I don't know if you remember, I think there was a knife attack on them because they represented Muhammad in a cartoon.
I don't think so.
It was something like that, yeah. It was something around the lines of that. And also South Park, who very famously, like, portrayed Muhammad. Mm-hmm. And it was super funny. They didn't show him the whole 2 episodes, like, but the whole controversy was like, as soon as they do it, the world's gonna go mad. And at the end, they just showed Muhammad, and it's just this crazy, weird looking. And he's like, oh no, he steps out, he's like, hey, and then he just leaves. And it's just, you know, little things like that. You know, they are controversial, of course, but like, you know, why? You know, like, why do people feel so passionate about these? You know, why do people feel so passionate to Christ? And nah, just kidding. But I found a couple movies that are similar. I mean, Taoism is. There's 12 main religions in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And these movies are not as big as Passion of the Christ, but Zoroastrians, that's a religion, right? Or astrology, whatever.
Sounds like an alien.
It does, which is what Scientology is all about. Stupid. There's a movie called On Wings of Fire, which covers the 3,500 years from the time of Prophet Zarathustra to the present day, tracing the history of Zoroastrians, Parsis of India. And it's the first and only film to cover the philosophy and history of Zoroastrianism in a scholarly and dramatic way. It's an extraordinary journey. It will take you places and times you've only read about. All right. Taoism, they just use it a lot for, like, you know, kung fu movies and stuff like that. And the 12 religions are Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Shinto, Islam, Sikhism, Confucianism, Jainism, Hinduism, Taoism, Baha'i, and Zoroastrianism. You know, there's also a movie called The Messiah. It's told in the perspective of like the Republic of Iran, directed by Nader Tabzadeh. So there's a lot of, you know, stories about Jesus Christ, but there's also different perspectives of how it may happen. You know, like Jewish people don't believe that they killed Jesus Christ and all that stuff. The Kingdom of Solomon is an Iranian religious historical film produced by Mojaba Faravide, and you know, it's another movie with historical basis, to say the least, you know. And I mean, there's a couple, and for me, again, I will say it's not as big as Passion of Christ, but there are films that are revolving with the subject matter, you know. And I think in the future, like if we were watching any of them, you know, the same, you know, kind of cloud of should we do it or not comes in the air. But it's also just that all these films exist, you know, and the religion that we're talking about right now is so popular that it's inevitably going to offend more people. Just like when something happens in the NFL and somebody does something political in the NFL, it'll affect a lot of people. Or like, what was the guy in the NBA? Ernest something hard?
Ernest
Freedom something?
I'm forgetting his first name, but it's like Contest Freedom.
There we go. And, you know, it's just a whole bunch. Like, there's a movie called The Book of Daniel. But I wanted to speak about the crazy things that happened there in the movie, man. This is just weird. So just to, like, you know, so during the movie,
passionate trivia,
deadass. I hope you guys want some trivia things of this. So again, Jim Caviezel is the person who played Jesus, right? During the scene where the 150-pound cross dropped on his shoulder, he separated his shoulder there, and that scene is still in the movie.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little like, oh, shit, right? Often, to put him into the makeup he was in, which was intense as fuck because he's covered in blood and all that, it would usually take 10 hours to put him into the makeup. That's a long time. And on some of those days, it would happen that the conditions of the weather were bad. It's raining and just terrible. They couldn't shoot. So to avoid spending more hours the next day, like to take it off and put it on, he would sleep with full makeup on.
Oh,
that's weird, man. just go. Imagine he goes up to go pee or some shit. Some guy's like, oh,
right. Oh God, no, Jesus.
They just look at each other. Again, this is what I said earlier. In one of the scenes, you could see blue coloration due to asphyxiation, the typical cause of death for crucified victims, because the prolonged suspension of Jim Caviezel on the crucifix. And the reason it's hard to breathe, for those at home, try it. Like when you breathe with your arms out, it's a little harder than if you were your arms within, because your chest muscles and lungs are extended, causing difficulty to breathe, resulting in slow suffocation. Which is a crazy part of the whole thing, because not only is that happening to you, but your hands are pierced through the wood, and your feet are pierced through the wood too. So there's basically 3 gauging holes in your body. Inside your asshole. And Caviezel also said that during filming, he was struck by lightning.
You know, I've heard about that one.
That's crazy. While he was on the crucifix, and his hair caught fire, but he was otherwise, like, cleverly written, miraculously unharmed. That's weird, man. That's very agnostic. The person who played Mary in the movie, her name is Mala Morgenstern, right?
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Mary, the virgin who had the baby without, you know, having sex. She was pregnant during the whole shoot, never told nobody.
Oh, what the fuck?
Until one day, she went up to Jim Caviezel, and in broken English, in a thick Romanian accent, she says, "I have baby in stomach." It was like, what? You don't tell nobody this? But still, very interesting, yeah.
That's like Mila Kunis getting on That 70s Show about lying about her age.
Oh yeah. I have illegal age. That's interesting, man. You know what's his name? With the glasses.
Hyde.
He got accused of sexual assault or like something.
Oh
yeah,
no.
He went to court and everything. It's a big deal. Yeah, man. Don't meet your heroes. Then he found the Lord. On the set, Mel Gibson had a Canadian priest, Father Stephen Somerville, and every day before production, they would celebrate the traditional Roman Catholic Latin Mass of the Apostolic Rite. The film crew would do it every day before production began. And before we saw the thing where Mel Gibson was having visions of making this movie to tell the story of one event that changed civilization. Mm-hmm. And this to me is just, it makes a lot of sense as to why this will happen. And this is the last fact I have, but I'm gonna read it just straight through. Because of their experience during film production, many of the cast and filming crew converted to Catholicism after the completion of the film. Among those who converted were Luca Leonello, a self-proclaimed angry atheist who played Judas Iscariot, and one Muslim actor who played one of the torturing guards. So they converted to Catholicism, which I thought was amazing. Like, not like in a beautiful way. I was just like, bro, that's crazy, man. Like you make movies for a living and you're making a movie and you convert it, you know? So that just blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck? You know?
I think that just kind of speaks to like how this movie is just inherently religious. Like, because it is just kind of like the retelling of the Bible.
I'm so sorry. Breaking news. Boop, 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 boop. Really breaking news. Guess what?
What? Oh, did he buy it?
Breaking news. Elon Musk struck a deal to buy Twitter for roughly $44 billion in a victory by the world's richest man to take over the social network. Yo, we're making a Twitter. That's crazy, bro. What? That's crazy. Jesus. Is he the second coming? Struggling. I'm not going to lie to you. That's a little agnostic. I'm gonna get shirts. That's crazy.
That's pretty fucking wild.
What the fuck? And you know what's hilarious?
What?
It's Jesus pointing his fingers up to that's fucking crazy, bro. You see that link? Wow. And yeah, we're definitely making a Twitter now.
Yeah.
We got to, man.
We're making a Twitter.
Let's go. Wow.
He says begrudgingly.
And it was written. And yeah, man, that was Passion de Cristo, you know, and it is what it is, you know. You know,
it was definitely a movie. Rating it as like a movie. Mm-hmm. You know, I on Letterboxd I gave it what'd I give it? I gave it 3 stars.
Yeah. I'll give it an agnostic review. I'll give it a 5.
Okay.
Very in the middle.
Like a 5 out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant a 5 out of 5. Because I was doing stars.
Is yours 3 out of 5?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'll give my 5 out of 10. Or 2.5 out of 5.
Okay.
However you want. Just for the agnosticness of it. And yeah, man, that's pretty much Passion of Christ. And damn, man. We won't be doing that one again. Maybe our next comic book could be the Bible.
Right?
I know. Well, nope.
That was the show.
Holy shit.
Thanks, guys, for hanging on.
I see what you did. And if you don't like it, don't crucify.
Please don't.
Anyway, this is On the Earth.
What's going on in our minds?
And this is why it mattered. This is Earth, Mind, and Matter. Good evening, good night, good morning.
Follow us on the social.
Earth,
Later.
Mind, and Matter Pod. Woo!